Evolution begins with a big tree, Chapter 94, White Tiger at Home. Yu's voice reverberated within the mist, leaving White Tiger dumbfounded. He was utterly dumbstruck. He blinked his eyes in a human-like manner. It looked like he wanted to argue his case. But the next moment as it opened its mouth, a loud and thunderous roar escaped his mouth. The subsequent sound waves even pushed away the surrounding mist, giving rise to waves of mist spreading in all directions. The tiger's roar, the hallmark of the king of the beasts, carried an undeniable power. At least, his roar made many of the mutant beasts tremble, looking at White Tiger in fear. But despite his fearsome roar, White Tiger felt even more frustrated. He wanted to speak, wanted to express his thoughts, but when he opened his mouth, all that came out was roars. What could he do? Meanwhile, White Tiger's roar gave Yu even a bigger headache. I've said it many times, you have to communicate with your mind, not with your mouth. As he said this, Yu could not quite understand. Nine Tails and Bull Demon both could easily grasp language. Even old fourth, Sarcosuchus, learned to express a few simple phrases in a few days. For instance, Master Spirit Laked. Sarcosuchus' voice may have been extremely icy, but he could still convey bits of his thoughts. However, White Tiger could truly not be taught. Already half a month had passed and yet he could not utter a single word. Occasionally when he tried to speak all he did was roar and roar again. Could it be that he is not just dumb on the surface, but also has a screw loose inside? With a doubtful mind, Yu's gaze toward the White Tiger changed. After a moment he, looking at the dejected White Tiger, sighed helplessly and stated, "I'll give you another month. If you can grasp some form of psychic communication, I'll allow you to go out." No sooner had Yu finished speaking. Roar. An excited roar resounded through the night sky. Other mutant beasts could not help but feel a sense of helplessness as he started jumping up and down like an exuberant child. "I'm certain that third brother is a white tiger, not a white cat." Amidst a heartfelt exclamation, Qin Gang's expression could not help but become stranger. To be honest, if White Tiger's size was reduced by 10 times, he would be no different from a domestic white cat with stripes. However, compared to a domestic cat, White Tiger was unmistakably naive and foolish. It was not apparent during hunting, but in other situations, he exuded innocence from head to toe. A massive white tiger standing at 3 to 4 meters high, jumping into the air just to catch a butterfly. Leaping and frolicking around the outskirts of North Canyon just to play with a peregrine falcon. Of course, Qin Gang did not really see White Tiger as White Cat, because when he first entered the Misty Mountains he ran into this mutant white tiger. At that time he was almost scared to death. A roar from this cat made the entire forest tremble in fear. When he walked, he carried the aura of the king of beasts. A single swipe from White Tiger left him severely injured. The indomitable power and indescribable might had left a lingering shadow in Qin Gang's heart, and it had not faded even after so long. And so, the king of beasts in his daily life, exhibited such a naive and foolish demeanor. Qin Gang could not help but sigh at the stark contrast. At this moment Yu, casting a deep glance at the excited White Tiger. He shook his head and shifted his gaze to Sarcosuchus. Compared to Nine Tails, Bull Demon and even White Tiger, the newcomer Sarcosuchus was the one that put Yu's mind at ease the most. Roar. An inexplicable bellow reverberated through the canyon as the Sarcosuchus slowly raised his yellow vertical pupils. In his icy voice, there was a tinge of rare emotions. Apparently, only Yu was the only one capable of stirring his emotions, which was truly the case. Nodding, Yu looked at the Sarcosuchus and gave a rare instruction. "Although you possess exceptional talent, you still can't fight many enemies alone. Do you understand what I mean?" "Understood." His long jaws opened and closed as he nodded, recalling the instructions the divine tree had given before. If he encountered a large-scale beast heart, he must not engage in a direct confrontation. The first thing he should do was run, the faster the better. This was due to the fact that the reflexes brought by the Sarcosuchus muscle movements were like an instinctive catapult, but relatively speaking, it was also a terrible drain on physical strength. Yu had long noticed this and had repeatedly emphasized it. If a terrifying existence like Sarcosuchus, who was born for battle and possessed extraordinary talents, were to perish from exhaustion, it would really be a pity. Shaking his head and suppressing his thoughts, Yu waved his branches, recalling the dispersed mist. Disperse? After he said this, the entire North Canyon returned to its previous silence. Every now and then, a few insect cries would be heard, only to disappear into the night within moments. Ding. You killed a Tier 0 Level 1 mutant cricket. Evolution points plus 10. Listening to the voice ringing in his ears, Wuxia could not help but mutter to himself. It's been so long, and yet there are still many mutant insects dares to come here. A cold smile emerged on Wuxia's face as his consciousness slowly sank into the depths of his true form. For a being like him, sleep was no longer necessary. However, Wuxia needed to use sleep to immerse his consciousness in his true body in order to have complete control in the truest sense, to control a colossal body of such magnitude. Wuxia's rootlets were like human hairs. If one of them were missing, would humans even notice? Certainly not. And it was true for Wuxia too. Occasionally, a rootlet would be nibbled by some mutant beast and he would remain completely unaware of it. However, once Wuxia's consciousness sank completely into his true body, this flaw would be completely eliminated. At this moment, if someone were to pay attention to the misty mountains in the night, they would undoubtedly be horrified to discover countless black snake-like rootless creatures slowly wriggling and adjusting their positions. Some hid among the weeds and grasses, sometimes delving into the crevices in the rocks. Certainly, there were more instances of them disappearing in a flash, dragging nocturnal mutant beasts underground, leaving behind a mess of fur or blood stains. Ding. You killed Tier 0 Level 2 mutant rat. Evolution points plus 20. Ding. You killed a Tier 0 Level 1 mutant yellow weasel. Evolution points plus 10. One notification after another rang, music to Wuxia's ears, bringing a smile on Wuxia's lips. There was no sound more pleasing than this. Well, if there was one, it would be the sound of obtaining even more evolution points. Evolution begins with a big tree. Chapter 95, Apex Predator. The next day at dawn, Wuxia woke up from his slumber. Amidst the lingering mist, Wuxia clearly sensed two unwavering gazes fixated on him for a long time. At the far western end of the misty mountains, atop a precipice, it seemed they had noticed Wuxia's awakening. Yip, a fox's howl shook the sky. Soon after, the Nine-Tails slowly raised her body, her mesmerizing eyes transfixed in North Canyon's direction, flickered with brilliance. Go on, Nine-Tails. With a flick of thought, Wuxia manipulated the mist and conjured two words, Nine-Tails, that she had learned first amidst the swirling white mist. Gazing at it in a daze, Nine-Tails did not say much. Instead, she clasped her claws together and bowed to Wuxia like a human, conveying her gratitude. Then, she transformed into a streak of red light, swiftly vanishing toward the desert. As a fire attribute mutant beast, it was there, even if just at the edge of desert, amidst the arid expanse and rarely trodden stretches of vast sand dunes that was rich in fire element, that she would find the perfect opportunity to reach her full potential. If fortunate, she might stumble upon remarkable fire attribute spirit flower and grasses. It would not be surprising if she returned riding the flames in just a few days. Meanwhile, on the other side, the Sarcosuchus was lying coiled around next to a boulder on the banks of a river, as if he was sleeping. Howl, a mysterious movement caused the Sarcosuchus to slowly lift his head. Have a safe journey. Chuckling in his heart, Wuxia offered his blessings to the formidable crocodile, looking at its fierce appearance. Right then, as if sensing Wuxia's blessing, the Sarcosuchus responded with a slight nod. He lifted his short and stout legs, heading toward the nearby river. This river was one of the few tributaries in the misty mountains that led to the great river in the east. By following this river, it would not take long for the Sarcosuchus to reach the great river, where the fiercest of the battle raged. Wuxia believed that in that moment, this mighty river would soon witness the arrival of the ultimate predator. A heavy sigh escaped Wuxia's lips as he bid farewell to his two companions. As he turned his gaze to North Canyon, it suddenly felt much emptier than before. White Tiger now obediently went to learn riding from Qinggang. Meanwhile, the honey badger was diligently absorbing the spirit stones in the underground plaza, his body surrounded by dazzling sliver-white electrical glow. As for the armored wild boar and the golden monkey, they formed a team and roamed around North Canyon. If one were to look at this pair at the moment, they would surely notice something interesting. The golden monkey was domineeringly sitting on the tall and sturdy back of the armored wild boar, holding a bunch of fruits in his hand. It would take a bite from the left, then a bite from the right, looking quite carefree. This guy, Wuxia let out a resigned sigh, feeling a pang of helplessness. The golden monkey has remarkable talent. If he can just rein in his mischievous nature, he stands the chance to rival the four great beasts. Unfortunately, even Flathead outshines him in this regard. At least Flathead has the self-awareness of his incapability and bravely strives for progress. But this one? Bah, forget it. There are some things that can't be forced, and I don't want to strong-arm anyone. It's more important to strengthen myself than to constrain others. With these thoughts in mind, Yu's attention shifted on the status screen. Shroud of Mist, hallucinogen, mutated roots, mutated branches, mastery of the earth element, and the recently extended primary root, dragonization. Looking at each and every ability, Yu recited their names as if enumerating his family's jewels. Among them, only the primary root's ability dragonization remained at level 1, while the other 5 abilities had reached level 2. Yu entertained the thought of further enhancing the primary root ability, the dragonization, to level 2, but the required evolution points were simply daunting. Even the mere sight of it caused Yu to shudder. A staggering 100,000 evolution points. Yu felt as if he could strengthen his entire body with these many evolution points. Yet, considering that the purpose of the main root's dragonization was to pierce through the planet and derive nutrition from it, Yu could not help but smile. Such an awe-inspiring ability was worth any number of evolution points. However, the regretful reality was that Yu currently lacked sufficient evolution points. Otherwise, he would have invested at the drop of a hat. But for now, Yu would have to focus on polishing his level 2 abilities one by one. Moreover, he could not help but eagerly anticipate the level 3 abilities and their boundless potential. As a catastrophe-class entity capable of single-handedly challenging countries, Yu had faith that the level 3 abilities would not disappoint him. Yu exhaled a long, deep breath as a serious look took over his face. Shroud of Mist, hallucinogen, mutated roots, mutated branches, as well as mastery of the earth element. Among the 5 level 2 abilities, Yu was most well-versed in the Shroud of Mist. As for others, there were still areas that required further refinement. For instance, the Master of Earth had yet to be fully mastered by Yu. Even now, he could not completely sink himself in the depths of the earth. The hallucinogen ability was even more elusive. Even if Yu wanted to master it but powerless to do it. And as for the mutated branches and roots, well, as a part of Yu's body, their strengthening process was definitely going to be slow and long. However, he could not wait for that long. Thus, the most promising thing before him at this moment was to focus on upgrading the Shroud of Mist. With this in mind, Yu stated, chuckling, "System, I wish to upgrade the Shroud of Mist." The moment these words left his lips, a crisp electronic system's prompt echoed in Yu's ears. "Ding, are you sure you want to use 10,000 evolution points to upgrade level 2 Shroud of Mist?" 10,000 evolution points? Yu's heart skipped a beat, but he quickly composed himself and responded in a dry voice, "Yes." Fortunately, Yu still possessed a reserve of 14,000 evolution points. Otherwise, he would not be able to afford the necessary evolution points for this upgrade. However, at this moment, this upgrade would squeeze him dry. Ahem, a dry cough escaped Yu's lips. Yu next thought of strengthening the mutated branches and roots one by one. And those were the true culprits behind the impending headache. Realistically speaking, it was impossible for him to become Tier 3 Transcendent in the near future. Nevertheless, he could not help but envision a future where his peak spiritual energy had reached 700,000, 800,000, or even 900,000. At that point, with several level 3 abilities in his arsenal, he would be a force to be reckoned with. He would not have to be afraid of the humans. At least, to some extent, he had already earned the qualifications to stand shoulder to shoulder with the race that had been dominating the Earth for thousands of years. That was the allure of continuous individual evolutions. The sheer power possessed by an individual, capable of overpowering everything in its path, had the ability to drive all creatures into a state of madness. At that time, if Yu's influence had expanded and solidified, there would be no obstacle too great, no rival too formidable to overcome. These thoughts alone sent shivers of excitement coursing through Yu. Just right at that instant, a thunderous explosion jolted Yu back to reality with a force that left his mind reeling in chaotic disarray. Simultaneously, the mist shrouding the misty mountains trembled slightly, signaling the start of an unknown change. Evolution begins with a big tree, Chapter 96, Unusual Activity of the Misty Mountains. Within the borders of China, the Spiritual Energy Monitoring Bureau, codenamed 7123, was a small spiritual energy monitoring station. "What's happening?" In a solemn voice, a female officer dressed in white military uniform, exuding a heroic and graceful aura, arrived at the center of the small spiritual energy monitoring station at first notice. "Reporting, sir." A nearby soldier rushed over and saluted before reporting with a solemn look on his face. "Just 2 minutes ago, a large-scale spiritual energy disturbance was noticed at the Misty Mountains." Saying so, the soldier pointed at the nearby screen and further added in a low voice, "So far, the spiritual energy fluctuations have been extremely unusual, but they have not shown any signs of rising." Unusual, but not showing any signs of rising? Doubtfully murmuring, Yang Lung-Ling took a few steps forward. After a moment, a set of blue lines, like an electrocardiogram, entered her eyes. However, what surprised her was that these blue lines hovered around 3,000 to 5,000 range, and did not show any signs of increasing. Generally speaking, rapid fluctuations represented instability in spiritual energy, and was a precursor to a surge in spiritual energy. However, the lack of increment ruled out the possibility of a surge. "Ha!" Exhaling a long deep breath, a trace of confusion appeared on Yang Lung-Ling's face. Although she had just graduated from the Spiritual Energy Research Institute, she quickly climbed to the position of station chief of this small spiritual energy monitoring station. It was due to her exceptional talent and outstanding academic grades, which could be considered to be on the level of a top student. Now, just a few days into her tenure, she encountered such a situation. Pressing down the brim of her white cap, Yang Lung-Ling realized that it was time to report to her teacher. This strange occurrence was not something she could handle alone. Of course, before reporting to her teacher, she felt it necessary to discuss it with a very impressive sister. Thinking of this, Yang Lung-Ling suddenly pursed her lips into a sweet smile under the white cap. However, if those idiots of the #1 Spiritual Energy Research Institute found out, they might howl like hell. Yang Lung-Ling's name suits her pretty well. She was one of the few ice queens in #1 Spiritual Energy Research Institute. Making her smile was harder than reaching the heavens. And because of her talent and decent strength, she had the qualification to be hailed as goddess. However, qualifications were only qualifications. After all, the #1 Spiritual Energy Research Institute had only one recognized goddess, the Flame Princess, an extraordinary girl from the mountains. To this date, no one knows how strong she really was. Not many people had seen her true face either. All that was known was that the Flame Princess, who either had a white mask or black duckbill cap covering her face, held an unshakable position in the #1 Spiritual Energy Research Institute. With her strength alone, she could make 99% of the people gasp for breath. More importantly, she was just an ordinary girl under the age of 18. One could imagine the position the Flame Princess held in the hearts of the people. However, what most people did not know was that the sacred and untouchable Flame Princess actually had several close friends. No, they should not be called close friends. A better term would be loyal fans or henchmen. They took pride in following the Flame Princess, and were responsible for taking care of her daily chores. Surprisingly, the higher-ups of the #1 Spiritual Energy Research Institute had tacitly approved of this arrangement. However, considering the Flame Princess' status and strength, countless people had no choice but to admit that she was indeed qualified. As such, the Flame Princess had a few small factions inside the #1 Spiritual Energy Research Institute. There were many boys who wanted to get close to the Flame Princess, but the number of boys who had actually talked to the Flame Princess could be counted on one hand. Even the talented young genius, Yen Gaoyuan, who originally brought the Flame Princess back, would often be snubbed by her. It was ironic that one day he boasted to his brothers, saying, "Ling Er treats me like a brother." At that time when we were coming from the mountains. Then, the next moment, seemingly noticing the dead silence around him, Yen Gaoyuan raised his head, and to his astonishment, saw a girl with a very hot figure and long hair that resembled flames, wearing a duckbill cap walked past him. And at that moment, as if sensing Yen Gaoyuan's gaze, the Flame Princess just slightly nodded and walked away, leaving a wisp of fragrance behind her. He looked completely stunned. Before he could say anything, his fellow brother's eyes immediately lit up with schadenfreude. "Keep boasting, keep on boasting. She treats you like a brother, huh? Haha, you're killing me, you're out of your depths. Don't say that." The Flame Princess just nodded at him. "Indeed, but it's really scary. I don't even dare to breathe in front of the Flame Princess." Amidst the laughter and teasing, Yen Gaoyuan's face turned red. "What the hell? Just a moment ago, Ling Er was clinging on to me, asking endless questions." Meanwhile, in a certain mysterious location, Ring ring ring, as a satellite phone started ringing, a redhead girl furrowed her brows slightly. The satellite phone, the invention of its time, was extremely expensive, which was why it had not become widespread even now. It was mostly used by the military. However, there was nothing that could be done about it. With the resurgence of spiritual energy and the disruption of the planet's magnetic field, most electronic communications had been rendered ineffective. Their use was just limited to within a city, allowing people living far apart in the city to communicate. To put it more seriously, due to the failure of electronic communications, countries' control over their territories had significantly weakened. Some countries had even witnessed cities declaring independence and ruling over it themselves. To mitigate this trend, the relevant departments of each country had introduced satellite communications that surpassed electronic communications. However, the unfortunate reality was that satellite phones were prohibitively expensive, beyond the reach of ordinary people. Only some geniuses of the spiritual energy research institutes and wealthy elites could afford them. Who could this be? With a furrowed brow, the girl could not help but mutter to herself. She disliked interacting with people, but sometimes she had no choice but to do so. Letting out a sigh, the girl slowly picked up the satellite phone. Senior sister, something strange is happening in the misty mountains that you asked me to keep an eye on. Before the young girl could speak, a cold and clear voice already came from the other end. Something strange? Ling Er replied in a calm and collected voice, seemingly completely unaffected. Yes, something strange. There has been an unusual fluctuation of spiritual energy at the Misty Mountains. However, I'm not seeing any signs of the spiritual energy rising, so I can't determine if it's a prelude to a surge in spiritual energy. Listening to the account of the girl named Yang Lung Ling, Ling Er didn't immediately respond but instead asked, "Have you informed the professors about this?" Not yet. I thought your hometown is near the Misty Mountains, so I wanted to inform you in advance. I see. Nodding her head, Ling Er's lips curved up slightly as she continued in a calm tone, "Don't worry, it shouldn't be a big deal. You don't need to bother the professors with this. They've had a lot of trouble with the recent experiment." After a moment of contemplation, Ling Er added, "You keep observing the Misty Mountains and write a report for me. I will help you investigate if necessary, and if needed, I will personally go over." All right, Senior Sister Ling Er. Hearing that Senior Sister Ling Er would personally come, Yen Lung Ling could not help but reveal a hint of excitement on her face. This excitement was no less than that of those fans seeing their favorite celebrity. However, the only regret was that Yang Lung Ling's fervor was still somewhat rational. Even a slight mistake from Ling Er's end could easily expose her. Evolution begins with a big tree, Chapter 97, Mastery of the Mist. At the moment when the humans began to notice the abnormal fluctuations of spiritual energy at the Misty Mountains, deep within the Misty Mountains. Roar, 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 accompanied by a series of roars reminiscent of ancient times, a large part of mists continuously kept shape-shifting, instantly transforming into one strange monster after another. These monsters were quite peculiar. All of them looked ferocious and roaring. With their roars, an inexplicable sound echoed continuously within the depths of the Misty Mountains. What was even more spine-chilling was that these monsters created from mists looked vivid and lifelike. At first glance they seemed very real. No, they were real. Because in the next moment, howl, with a deep and resonant roar, a mist-formed monster bit through a large tree that was as thick as an adult human. How is this possible? Looking up at the sky, Qin Gang's mouth went agape at the sight of a nine-tails fox made of mist dozens of meters tall. Initially he also thought that it was just a phantom created by the divine tree. But in a moment, a cracking sound was heard as a chunk of tree was bitten off. A myriad of question marks raced through his mind. Qin Gang could not help but doubt his existence. It must be fake. This must absolutely be fake. While mumbling to himself, Qin Gang suddenly froze. It was because at that moment the divine tree seemed to have heard him. With another roar, the mist started swirling, transforming into a vortex. At the same time, a lizard of mist with wings on its back emerged from the vortex 10 meters away from him. Damn it! Qin Gang cried out loud, startled by his creature. Then, as he looked at it again, he seemed to have realized something and exclaimed, "A dragon?" Yes, a dragon. A mystical creature from Western legends, the symbol of power and strength. As the dragon emerged from the mist, it cast a disdainful glance at Qin Gang before letting out another roar, like a dragon's roar, it tore through the clouds of mist, creating stormy waves visible to the naked eye as the mist rolled back. Caught off guard, Qin Gang was swept away by the waves, flying through the air like a kite with a broken string. However, to his surprise, he realized that he was mostly unharmed. Performing a smooth backflip in the air and landing safely, Qin Gang examined his body and found no major issues. But for some reason, the terrifying image of the roaring dragon remains etched in his mind. The dragon landed on the ground and spread its wings before roaring again. The next moment, the clouds of mist in the vicinity violently swirled back. If it were the first encounter, one might not be blown away by the shockwave, but he would sure as hell be scared to death. It was just too terrifying. It was something that not even the strongest of hearts could bear. Fortunately, Qin Gang believed that his heart was strong enough to withstand it. Of course, it was only barely. If it happened a few more times, he would still be terrified. Meanwhile, hidden deep within the swirling clouds of mist, a smile curled up the corners of Yu Ziyu's mouth, watching these scenes unfold. Not bad. However, Yu Ziyu was only saying this while trying to be modest. At this moment, his heart was dancing with joy. So strong, so damn strong. The level 3 Shroud of Mist was simply a cheat-like ability. He narrowed his eyes as a series of information entered his sight. Mastery of Mist, level 3. You can control the mist at your will. While the mist serves as the eyes, it can also transform into anything you want. The introduction seemed simple, but Yu Ziyu knew that it was anything but simple. Because the form of these mist-formed monsters depended on Yu Ziyu's understanding of them. The clearer and deeper his knowledge of these creatures was, the more realistic the transformations of the mist would be. What was even more terrifying was that the closer these mist-formed monsters were to Yu Ziyu's physical body, the more terrifying his control over them would be. In other words, the mist creatures formed by Yu Ziyu at the edge of the Misty Mountains were only vaguely similar in appearance. More often than not, they did not resemble their true forms at all. However, if it was closer to North Canyon, Yu Ziyu could more skillfully control the mist to create the most realistic mist beasts. Mist beasts, that was what Yu Ziyu named them. Condensing a large amount of mist, that was indestructible and unbreakable, Yu Ziyu could shape it at his whim. What was even more terrifying was that with a large concentration of mist, they could almost turn tangible and launch tangible attacks. Just like how Yu Ziyu controls the mist beast to bite a large tree. In reality, it was just numerous clouds of mist condensing together to the point that they turned tangible, and then instantly expanding, thereby crushing the tree right away. However, to an onlooker, it genuinely appeared as if the beast had bitten to pieces. Of course, up until now, the attacks launched by these materialized mist beasts were not particularly strong, at most on par with attacks of low-level to intermediate-level mutant beasts. It would be difficult for them to breach the defenses of Tier 1 Transcendence. However, did Yu Ziyu really need the negligible attacks from the mist beasts? No, of course not. The reason for his excitement was that Yu Ziyu saw a possibility. The more singular an ability was, the easier it could be dealt with. And truly powerful abilities are mostly composite abilities. Perhaps the sole mastery of the mist would not be enough to establish a formidable presence. However, combining the ever-changing mist with his illusion-inducing hallucinogen, Yu Ziyu could easily turn falsehood into reality. The mastery of mist granted the mist beasts to change shape, making it difficult to discern what was real and what was illusory. And with the illusion-inducing hallucinogen, Yu Ziyu believed that even ordinary people, no even powerful mutant creatures, would find it challenging to distinguish between truth and illusion. At this moment, the mist beast also possessed the so-called destructive power. In the near future, a new race would be born in this world. The mist beasts, a formless race that could change into any form, and with unimaginable abilities. But that is not the most terrifying part about them. The most truly terrifying thing about the mist beasts is that they do not fear any physical attacks. If that is the case, that meant firearms, which the humans rely on most, would lose their so-called effectiveness. From now on, the entire Misty Mountains would become a forbidden zone for humans. Until humans had not found an absolute means to counter the enigmatic mist beasts, humans would not step foot in the Misty Mountains. Because no one wanted to seek death. When firearms lose their power, who would dare to venture into the mountains? At that time, all Yu Ziyu had to do was quietly manipulate the race known as the Mist Beast from behind the scenes. Of course, if need be, he could also demonstrate the unimaginable strength of the Mist Beast to some humans or even some transcendent creatures. Yu Ziyu could easily unleash the power to tear the earth apart and shake the heavens with the help of the roots buried in the underground. and you could envelope these roots in the bodies of the mist beasts. In other words, you would only show people one scene. The Misty Mountains had given birth to peculiar creatures. These creatures could not leave the Misty Mountains, and yet they possessed unimaginable power. The weakest among them would at most have the strength comparable to low-level mutant beasts. And the strongest among them could have a terrifying combat power at the level of Tier 1 Transcendence or even Tier 2 Transcendence. Evolution begins with a big tree, Chapter 98, The Crazy Plan. Artificial Forbidden Zone. This plan is perfect. Really perfect. After careful consideration, you became increasingly excited. After all, if humans were to discover that his true form was a tree, he would not be able to do anything no matter how strong he was. Being a tree meant having weaknesses. And his roots had become his Achilles' heels. With so many means in their arsenal, humans had many ways to kill a tree. But now you could hide behind the cloak of mist beasts. Until humans had truly developed the means to counter the mist beasts, humans would have to prevent their further intrusion into the Misty Mountains. At this moment, as long as you did not let the shroud of mist spread to the cities, there would not be a real clash with humans. Of course, it was still not the most important part. The most important part was that if you could really manage to deceive all of humanity, no, just the entirety of China, then you would no longer be controlled by anyone. He intended to kill any human who dared to enter the Misty Mountains. Occasionally, he would release those who had been scared silly or had gone insane back into the human world, who would then spread the terror of the Misty Mountains and mist beasts. Word of mouth would be that humans were killed by the mist beast. Naturally, it had nothing to do with the willow tree. As the entire plan unfolded in Yu's mind, the corner of his lips rose slightly into a smile. After all, rumors were fearful things. Especially in the current era of the resurgence of spiritual energy, where countless unsolved mysteries were appearing every moment and every second. Not every mystery could be explained by humans. For those deadly unsolved mysteries, humans like to designate them as forbidden zones. Forbidden zone or death zones from where no one could return alive. Just like the Bermuda Triangle, where the sky was perpetually shrouded in a veil of darkness, resembling a fragment of shattered world, and the chaotic magnetic field had materialized, distorting everything. Or like the Great Blue Hole, located about 120 kilometers off the coast of Belize, which devours everything like a black hole. And now, all you needed to do was remain secretive enough and deceive the eyes of human to create a brand new forbidden zone. The Misty Mountains, where the undying and indestructible mist beasts eagerly awaited the arrival of every life form. They were not life forms, yet they surpassed all life forms. Wandering between the world, occasionally letting out faint roars that seemed to come from ancient times. At that point, no matter how many humans analyzed or researched mist beasts, you did not need to pay attention. Without any evidence, all they could do was make baseless guesses. As for humans with evidence, they would never leave the Misty Mountains. If his plan came to fruition, you could already guess some of the conclusions humans would draw, such as the mist beasts are creatures of ancient past and their souls are dwelling in the mist after death, or perhaps it's a distortion of the magnetic field, projecting creatures from another world. However, regardless of whichever unfathomable explanation they came up with, you did not believe that they could associate these beasts with him, a willow tree. And after waiting for some time, you could sink his entire body deep into the ground using the mastery of the earth element ability, hiding himself in the shadows. TSK. I seem to have gone a bit crazy. With an odd smile on his face, you could not help but be excited. Indeed, it was quite insane. He was attempting to deceive all the humans, especially right under their watchful gaze. However, you had a feeling that the success rate of this plan was quite high. Because ordinary humans, or even those who had not reached Yu's level, would find it difficult to comprehend his superhuman means. Superhuman means were always difficult to explain scientifically. Yu let out a long, deep breath, suppressing the excitement in his heart. Yu had not expected the level 3 ability to bring him such a pleasant surprise. Of course, it was just a pleasant surprise and nothing else. He did not forget the preparations before starting the plan in all his excitement. If I really want to implement this plan, the first thing I need to do is create some mist beasts that not only resemble real life forms, but also their essence. At this point, Yu's gaze slowly shifted to the mutant beasts in North Canyon one by one. With these mutant beasts, Yu had some confidence in imitating the mist beasts perfectly. Just like the nine-tailed mist fox was based on the original nine tails mixed with some of Yu's imagination. For example, he added 8 more tails to the original 9 tails, making it look even more ghastly. At the same time, he had increased its size several times, transforming into a giant fox that stood over 20 meters tall and made it look like treading on the clouds. At this moment, Yuziyu also realized that if he was lacking in manpower, he could use the Shroud of Mist and the hallucinogen ability as a shield and arrange these mutant beasts to attack and kill the humans who came to investigate. He could simply cloth these mutant beasts with a layer of mist. Real or fake, tangible or intangible. It would be extremely difficult to discern them. Chuckling, Yuziyu could not help but admire his cunningness. It was a seamless plan, enough to make humans fear and be cautious. Yuziyu did not believe that even if humans wanted to test the authenticity of the mist beasts, they would resort to nuclear weapons. Even if nuclear weapons were used, so what? After some time, Yuziyu could bury his true body deep underground, rendering nuclear weapons useless against him. And after the strike, humans would stand witness to the mist beasts rising unscathed from the devastated land, raising their heads and roaring, shaking up the sky. Yuziyu gave a nod, once again feeling that this plan was perfect. The only hiccup was how humans discover the mist beasts and understand their terror. That was the key problem. However, the crux of this issue was how to confuse or spread the rumors among humans. All he needed was a half-true and half-false rumor, and then it would spread through the mouths of the people, spreading from 1 to 10, 10 to hundreds, until one day, countless people would witness the existence of the mist beasts with their own eyes. From then on, the mist beasts would be truly recognized by humans and even some transcendent creatures. Evolution begins with a big tree. Chapter 99 Experiment. White Tiger. Roar, roar, roar. Accompanied by roars echoing through sky, the entire North Canyon was filled with swirling mist. From afar, one would beheld massive ferocious mist beasts emerging from vortexes of mist one after another. Among them, 2 beasts stood out as the most terrifying. One had a pair of enormous wings on its back and resembled a colossal tiger. This was Cloud-Winged Tiger, modeled after one of the 4 great beasts under Yuziyu's command, Old Third, the White Tiger. Yuziyu had added wings to a tiger. As a tiger, it could not be without wings, could it? And the second beast was a giant bull with crescent-shaped horns on its head, and was carrying a huge mountain on its back. Mountain-back bull, this was another mist beast created by Yuziyu, modeled after another of the 4 great beasts, Old Second Bull Demon. Not only did it resemble Bull Demon, but it also possessed a similar aura. Currently, only White Tiger and Bull Demon were in North Canyon. As for Nine Tails and Sarcosuchus, they had already left. Although Yuziyu had intended to create mist beasts based on them, he was simply powerless to do so. Without them present as a reference, Yuziyu's imagination alone lacked a certain charm. At this moment, the Cloud-Winged Tiger flew through the clouds, appearing as if it was breathing in and out the clouds, and the mountain-back bull, carrying a mountain on its back, descended from the mist with a thunderous boom, were being polished bit by bit as Yuziyu gathered White Tiger and Bull Demon near him. It could be said that if not for the fact that they were formed from mist, they would be almost indistinguishable from reality. At this moment, roar, as a roar reverberated through the canyon, the eyes of real White Tiger on the ground widened, staring at the Cloud-Winged Tiger flying through the clouds in a daze. Yuziyu chuckled mischievously, looking at White Tiger's surprise. Then he controlled the Cloud-Winged Tiger and suddenly spread its wings. A thunderous boom followed as the mist was pushed back to either side. From a distance, a tiger over 20 meters long and with wings on its back appeared to be pouncing toward the White Tiger, dragging swirling clouds of mist behind it. Roar, a tiger's roar reverberated through the sky, as the shock waves sent the mist swirling. At the same time, the White Tiger instinctively went on guard, his fur standing on their end. Facing the sudden appearance of a gigantic monster, the White Tiger was completely bewildered. However, the imposing momentum was not false. Especially when a sense of crisis suddenly arose in his heart for some reason. So, without a shred of hesitation, the White Tiger fiercely swung its claws, tearing through the air, swoosh. A sharp swishing sound rang as the air trembled. However, the next moment, much to its confusion, this figure, which bore quite a lot of similarity to himself but was several times larger, unexpectedly split into 2 by his claw. Momentarily stunned, a realization seemed to have dawned upon the White Tiger. He carefully observed the split giant tiger, blinking his eyes repeatedly. Fake? Though a bit dumbfounded, the White Tiger did not think himself as stupid. At this moment, he had reached a clear conclusion in his mind. Ruhar, The white tiger let out another roar tinged with disdain before withdrawing his claw and raising his head proudly. But the next moment, suddenly winds howled, ruffling the white tiger's fur disheveled. Lifting his gaze toward the sky, the white tiger was astonished to see the previously split giant tiger slowly recovering. Clouds of mist swirled together, forming its body once again. In an instant, a completely intact giant tiger with wings on its back appeared before the white tiger. This time, the cloud-winged tiger with its wings on its back did not give the white tiger another chance. It slowly opened its mouth. Roar. Like the howling of a wind, a tornado visible to the naked eyes emerged from its massive jaws. The tornado, formed from mist, swelled against the wind. In the blink of an eye, it grew to a size of 20 to 30 meters as it reached the white tiger. Bang. With a thunderous bang, a cloud of dust rose into the air, followed by a white tiger's low and muffled whimper as if in pain. Tisk. Wuxia, hidden behind the veil of dense mist, clucked his tongue in disappointment. With his current control of mist, even if he tried to manipulate it, the tornado unleashed by the mist beast could only display a strength close to a high-level mutant beast. It was insignificant, too insignificant. Compared to the original, who could shatter mountains with the whip of his tail, the difference was simply too big. However, there was one thing he was sure of. Looking at the white tiger, who was emerging from the swirling cloud of dust with a slightly disheveled fur, Wuxia knew that this little cat was getting angry. Much to his dismay, his carefully groomed fur was totally messed up. More importantly, the monster actually bore a striking resemblance to himself. Ruhar, a thunderous tiger's roar reverberated across the sky, creating powerful shockwaves. The white tiger planted his feet on the ground and bent his legs as all his muscles contracted. The next moment, with a swoosh, he left a streak of white light as he pounced at the monster treading on the clouds. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. One after another, his half-a-meter-long claws kept slashing. After a short while, the white tiger landed on the ground. He turned his head and saw the mist beast in the sky dispersing into the mist. However, before he could let out an excited roar. Much to his disbelief, the mist in the sky started converging once again, and shortly after, a huge and majestic white tiger with wings of its back reappeared. He was bewildered, completely bewildered. Before the somewhat slow-witted white tiger could react, the cloud-winged tiger in the sky once again fired a tornado toward him, without giving him too much time to think. It indeed looks grand and imposing, but because its form is of that of mist, it's really lacking in power. Seeing the enormous tornado unable to even breach the white tiger's defenses, Wuxia's corners of mouth twitched. However, there was no denying that just by looking at its grand and imposing appearances, one would really think that mist beasts are incredibly strong. After all, it was treading on the clouds and was 20 to 30 meters tall, and also had wings on its back. When it flapped its wings, it gave rise to howling gusts of winds. When it opened its mouth and fired its breath, it would unleash a tens of meters long tornado. Such a spectacle would scare the hell out of anyone. Everything was all good except the mist beast was really lacking in the power department. It was even inferior to a branch whipped by Wuxia. Wuxia heaved a sigh, but he could not say that he was disappointed. After all, his control over the mist would only grow stronger over time. Although it could not be said that the mist beast truly possessed the power of Tier 1 transcendence, it should have no problem threatening creatures below that level. The current power of the mist beast was sufficient for Wuxia. Looking at the white tiger entangled with the mist beast, the cloud-winged tiger, a serious look appeared on Wuxia's face. This time I'm going to play for real. Smiling in his heart, Wuxia quietly activated the hallucinogen ability. Evolution begins with a big tree, Chapter 100, The Terror of Mist Beasts. Hallucinogen was an ability that induced sensory confusion and distorted one's mind. As this ability advanced to level 2, it gained an even formidable, the ability to effortlessly influence and manipulate the minds of others, even to the extent of rewriting their memories. At first, Wuxia considered using this ability to conceal his own existence. But after giving it a deeper thought, he soon realized the risks involved in tampering with memories. There was always a chance of them reverting back, which only led to unforeseen dangers. Because of these reasons, this ability rarely displayed its full potential in Wuxia's hands. However, things were different now. Wuxia smiled in his heart as the very air started vibrating ever so slightly. Silently, an invisible force suddenly surged forth. Ruhar, A spine-chilling roar reverberated through the sky as the gigantic tiger with wings on its back and a massive body spanning over 20 meters gained something extra. There had to be a subtle change in its expression. However, if one had been attentive enough, they would have definitely noticed that the cloud-winged tiger's former stoic expression was long gone. Ruhar, amidst a resonating roar, the mist beast, cloud-winged tiger slowly opened its massive jaws. And in that precise moment, the white tiger's instincts abruptly alerted him to an imminent danger, and an exponentially escalating danger at that. Indeed, the danger level had exponentially surged. The white tiger had no idea why the danger level had suddenly surged, but the overwhelming sense of crisis made his fur stand on end. Lifting his gaze, the white tiger noticed a menacing vortex within the cloud-winged tiger's gaping jaws. Howl! As the piercing howl reached the white tiger's ears, he instinctively launched himself into the air. At the same time, the massive tornado, that was as fierce and awe-inspiring as before, shot toward the earth. Boom. An earth-shattering explosion resounded across the sky. The unleashed might of this attack was many times greater than before, surpassing any prior display of force. The earth quaked and the mist rolled back in all directions. In a flash, the battlefield appeared as if it was hit by a small earthquake. As the white tiger raised his gaze and noticed the vast crater, stretching dozens of meters wide in the wake of the attack, he was completely shocked. His pupils shrank to the size of the tips of needles. The white tiger was in total disbelief. He was struggling to comprehend as to how the same attack that had failed to breach its defenses could now effortlessly rip through the earth. He could not comprehend it, he really could not. However, at this moment what never occurred to White Tiger was to consider whether everything he had seen was real or not. In another corner, Wuxia was bemused by the frantic evasion of the white tiger. As a matter of fact, the cloud-winged tiger was really incapable of conjuring such a devastating breath. However, that did not imply that Wuxia could not. In the cover of the hallucinogen ability, the white tiger's senses had been skillfully manipulated. The cloud-winged tiger remained the cloud-winged tiger, and the unleashed tornado was still the very same tornado. However, at the very moment the tornado struck the earth, roots hidden in the ground instantly emerged along the tornado. Next, all Wuxia did was employ his hallucinogen ability to subtly suggest to the white tiger that these roots were an integral part of the mist itself. In other words, what White Tiger saw was nothing but dense mist. Meanwhile, Wuxia beheld a different sight. Within the veil of mist, he witnessed black roots, reminiscent of venomous serpents, swiftly striking out. Wuxia let out a deep breath, a slight smirk tugging at the corners of his mouth. There was no denying that the hallucinogen ability was quite peculiar. It could interfere with the thoughts of living beings and influence their perception. When combined with the mist beasts he had created, the resulting combination could only be described as terrifying. Chuckling to himself, Wuxia could not help but feel relieved. The experiment had concluded. The primary results looked promising. However, further tests and practical applications were still required. Yet, before delving deeper, Wuxia cast a glance at the white tiger, who remained on very much alert, staring at the cloud-winged tiger. Shaking his head with a sigh, Wuxia muttered, "What a stupid tiger." Wuxia could not help but feel frustrated by the white tiger's lack of intelligence. While other creatures and humans could not see through because they did not know anything. The white tiger, despite being aware of Wuxia's ability to manipulate dense mist, failed to discern the true nature of the mist beasts. Haze, with a resigned sigh, Wuxia swung his branch. In a moment, much to White Tiger's astonishment, the mist beast completely dissipated, leaving only a dense fog that once again enveloped the forest. Occasionally, faint beastly roars which were actually howling of wind could be heard. At night, while a hazy veil of darkness blanketed North Canyon, it remained shrouded in an eerie silence as ever. Yet, on this particular night, besides White Tiger, humans as well as mutant beasts bore witness to the existence of the mist beasts. A roar as if coming from the distant past resounded as one mist beast after another emerged from the dense fog, prowling around the vicinity of the canyon. "Divine Tree, what are you doing?" Observing a mist beast nearby, which bore a striking resemblance to the honey badger, Chen Qin could not contain her curiosity and mumbled. These beasts of mist possessed an uncanny peculiarity, yes, peculiarity. At a glance, they appeared lively as if imbued with life itself. However, when Chen Qin reached out to touch them, they would disperse back into mist, dispersing amidst the surrounding trees. But not long after, much to her shock and awe, the mist would coalesce once again, reassembling into identical forms. Rendered speechless, Qian Qin turned to face Qin Gang, who stood with arms crossed, bearing a solemn expression on his face as he gazed at the mist beasts one after another. Qin Gang, what's the matter with you? Approaching him, Qian Qin asked, her voice filled with surprise. It's nothing. Qin Gang shook his head in response, but his gaze remained fixed upon the swirling vortex of mist in the sky. Faintly, there were echoes of fox howls, akin to coming straight from ancient times, emanating from a massive vortex of mist. It was only when he heard this fox call that Qin Gang exhaled a long breath. As expected, these strange things are created by the divine tree. To him they were indeed strange. They possessed physical forms, yet they were intangible and impervious to physical attacks. Furthermore, every time Qin Gang's mind replayed the vivid image he witnessed at the break of dawn, on the outskirts of North Canyon, the ethereal fox of mist biting effortlessly through sturdy tree trunk, and the colossal dragon's breath sending a person soaring through the air, Qin Gang's gaze could not stop flickering. These creatures of mist were truly strange. They possessed the ability to inflict harm upon others, while remaining impervious to retaliation. Evolution begins with a big tree, Chapter 101, Imperfection Revealed. Deep within the heart of North Canyon, a trail of crimson smoke rose beneath the towering canopy of a majestic willow tree, coiling and assuming the shape of a slender silhouette. Master, is this the new marvel you wanted to show me? Qin Er's playful voice rang as she observed a palm-sized mist fox with 9 tails, frolicking in the air nearby. She could not but curl her lips. As a formidable psychic expert, Qin Er effortlessly saw through the extraordinary nature of the mist surrounding her. Yet, despite its peculiarity, it was merely an intricate dance of psychic energies. Thinking so, Qin Er casually beckoned, waving her hand. In the blink of an eye, much to Yu Ziyu's astonishment, the palm-sized mist fox he had crafted for Qin Er gracefully floated into her palm. Sensing Yu Ziyu's surprise, Qin Er's lips curled into a smile as she offered an explanation. Master, judging by the lifelike manifestation of the fox, your mastery over the mist must have reached a new level. But Master, you should not forget that the reason the mist takes the form of a fox is because you have infused it with your spirit. As long as your spirit is not dispersed, its form will naturally be difficult to disperse, as you've once mentioned. Saying so, Qin Er gently squeezed her right hand, crack as if shattering something. The palm-sized mist fox dispersed into the dense fog but did not reform even after a long time. Well, Yu Ziyu's face froze in disbelief at the sight of mist creatures not reforming even after a prolonged time. Is this a joke? He had painstakingly crafted the mist beast, only for it to be easily dispersed. Wasn't it supposed to be indestructible? Before Yu Ziyu could fully comprehend the situation, Qin Er gracefully approached him, while a subtle smile graced her lips. Master, for ordinary beings and even some transcendents, these mist creatures might be an enigma. After all, they are impervious to physical attacks and resistant to destruction. However, for someone like me, a soul adept in psychic abilities, it's not much of a challenge. Qin Er's mischievous smile deepened as she added, after all, my innate talent allows me to completely ignore physical attacks. Listening to Qin Er's explanation, Yu Ziyu could not help but nod in agreement. I guess that sounds reasonable. However, after a brief moment Yu Ziyu's tone changed, but Qin Er, is it really necessary for you to spoil my plans like this? I poured my heart and soul into devising this masterful plan, and now you've unraveled the very core of my strategy, the mist beasts. I'm just better at analyzing than anyone else. Qin Er chuckled, lightly caressing the rough bark of Yu Ziyu's tree body and continued, Master, you're just one person, so it's natural to have imperfections in your plans. However, now that I'm here, I'll naturally not allow mistakes in your plans. Saying so, Qin Er's eyes gleamed with an intelligent gleam. Over the past few months she had not idled away in the human world. In order to assist her master and compensate for her own shortcomings, Qin Er had absorbed knowledge from the human world like a sponge. Now she could finally put that knowledge to use. Qin Er looked at the mist beasts wandering around in the dense fog one after another, sorted out what she had learned in her mind and analyzed. The reason the mist beasts created by Master don't dissipate after so long is because, while shaping them, you haven't imbued them with a trace of your spirit, using your formidable psychic power. Your spirit as a tether, allowing the mist beasts to gradually reform even if they disperse. Speaking of this, Qin Er let out a sigh and continued, the trace of your spirit imbued in the mist beast may go unnoticed by others, but for someone like me who had awakened psychic talent, it shines as brightly as a candle in the night. So, what you mean to say? Listening to Qing Er, Yuziyu caught the implications. So, we must find a way to conceal your spiritual traces. Otherwise, if you encounter someone with psychic talent, they will see through the true nature of the mist beast. If they were to investigate further, they might trace it back to its source, which is you, Master. So, the biggest flaw of my mist beasts is that all of their secrets will be revealed if they encounter a psychic expert. Qing Er nodded in agreement and frankly added, although the psychic talent is a top talent and individuals with awakened psychic talent are rare, this still poses a considerable risk. We should take precautions. It's better to be safe than sorry. You're right about that. Yuziyu sighed as a helpless look took over his face. His goal was to deceive all of humanity and create a terrifying forbidden zone. However, it would be reduced to a mere joke if its secret were seen through by individuals possessing psychic talent, or some superhumans gifted in psychic abilities discovered the mystery behind the mist beast's invulnerability by mistake. At that time, let alone being designated into a forbidden zone, it might even attract the attention of China or even the entire human race. Thinking of this, Yuziyu sunk into rare contemplation. Just at this moment, Yuziyu inadvertently noticed a subtle smile playing on Qing Er's lips. Though subtle, how could someone as strong as Yuziyu fail to notice such details? Could it be that this girl already have a solution in mind? Curiosity piqued, Yuziyu tentatively asked, Qing Er, you wouldn't happen to have a solution to this predicament? Caught off guard, Qing Er's smile stiffened as she asked in surprise, Master, how did you know? Your expression betrayed you. I see. Qing Er touched her cheek in helplessness. Why can't I hide my emotions in front of Master? I wanted to surprise him a little. Qing Er pouted in dissatisfaction. After pondering for a moment, she continued, Master, perhaps you've forgotten the power of spirit stones. The power of spirit stones? Yuziyu was slightly taken aback. He had not expected Qing Er to suddenly bring up spirit stones. But then, as if he realized what she meant, Yuziyu's face lit up with joy and excitement. Right, spirit stones. They have the ability to shield the spiritual energy fluctuations. And the trace of my spirit imbued into the mist beast is essentially a form of spiritual energy. If my guess is right. With these thoughts in his mind, a nearby root buried deep in the ground swiftly pushed apart the soil and emerged from the ground with a thunderous rumble, leaving a winding gully. At its tip happened to be a diamond-shaped crystal, shimmering with a faint halo under the night sky. An Earth Attribute Spirit Stone, containing a significant amount of Earth Attribute spiritual energy. This spirit stone was obtained not long ago, when Yuziyu and his companions discovered a medium-sized spirit stone mine. The mined spirit stones were transported underground to the plaza underneath Yuziyu's physical body. Despite its small size, no bigger than a thumb, the spiritual energy contained within it was enough for an average person to cultivate for several days. At this moment, as Yuziyu gazed at the Earth Attribute Spirit Stone with a tempting expression on his face. If the Spirit Stone could shield the spiritual energy, then how should I use them to conceal it? Could it be? A flash of inspiration suddenly struck him as he recalled the concept of demon beasts' inner cores in the novels and movies, as well as the crystal cores from the magical creatures. Would it really work? Although hesitant, Yuziyu once again condensed a cluster of mist and molded it into the shape of a fox. Immediately after, the root coiled around the spirit stone inserted the spirit stone into the mist beast's body at lightning-fast speed. The moment he put the spirit stone into the mist beast's body, Yuziyu was astounded to observe slight changes in the mist beast. It was indescribable. Yet Yuziyu could clearly sense that the mist beast seemed to be more alive. Especially at the center of its brow, which happened to be shimmering, giving it an otherworldly appearance. Qing Er, Yuziyu called out, his eyes filled with curiosity and questions. Let me see. Saying so, Qing Er's eyes became focused as a faint gleam flickered within them. Soon, his face lit up with joy as she stated with excitement, Master, I can no longer sense them. In the perception, this mist beast seemed to be non-existent. That's great. Yuziyu nodded and finally heaved a sigh of relief. With this, my plan to create a forbidden zone should be foolproof. But there is one thing that still needs to be worked on. Although my spirit is hidden by the spirit stones, there is still a significant flaw. If someone were to completely disperse these mist beasts, they'll discover the spirit stone suspended within. At the time, the humans would jump to strange conclusions. And more importantly, the spirit stones would undoubtedly attract many covetous gazes toward the mist beasts. As expected, there is no true perfection in the world. Yuziyu heaved a sigh, no longer dwelling on this point. Compared to this issue, the mist beasts as they were now satisfied his needs. The next step would be to simply wait. Evolution begins with a big tree. Chapter 102. Humans and monsters have different paths. The night grew deeper. Having resolved some issues regarding the mist beasts, Qing Air suddenly appeared to have recalled something important and spoke up. Master, the humans have detected unusual fluctuations in the Misty Mountains in these past 2 days. Unusual fluctuations? That's right. Qing Air nodded and explained, according to the information I've gathered, the spiritual energy in the Misty Mountains suddenly started intensely fluctuating 2 days ago. Although the spiritual energy didn't show any signs of rising, it drew the attention of vigilant individuals. Is that so? After a moment of contemplation, realization dawned upon Yuziyu. The cause of these fluctuations became apparent to him, and it was when he had upgraded his ability, the Shroud of Mist. It would have triggered some fluctuations which had caught the notice of humans. However, there was nothing he could do about it. Although the mist had the ability to suppress the spiritual energy, it could not completely conceal them like the spirit stones. Some leakage was inevitable. Understanding the situation was one thing, but responding to it was another matter entirely. At this moment, a realization seemed to have flashed across Yuziyu's mind, prompting him to raise his eyes. Roar, roar, roar! A series of primal roars reverberated through the air as 2 colossal mist beasts emerged from the thick mist. The first mist beast was modeled after White Tiger, the cloud-winged tiger, with a body length exceeding 20 meters, and it possessed vast wings that shrouded the sky. A mere glance at the creature instilled a suffocating sense of awe. The second creature was an enormous bull carrying a mountain on its back. Every step it took sent back the mist swirling, as if the very ground struggled to support its mass. These were the 2 most formidable mist beasts Yuziyu had managed to create. Even without utilizing the hallucinogen and roots, they possessed raw strength to rival high-level mutant beasts. These 2 mist beasts were enough to hold their ground. In other words, it was time to put certain plans in motion. As these thoughts crossed his mind, a mischievous smile curled upon Yuziyu's lips as he stated, if those with ill intentions are truly unwilling to relinquish their pursuits, then let them come. Hearing Yuziyu's statement, perplexity took over Qing Air's face. Master, what do you mean? Without explaining anything, Yuziyu's branch suddenly shot forth like a released arrow, piercing a colossal border situation tens of meters away. And as it shot forth, the branch continued to grow without ceasing, thanks to Yuziyu's innate talent, super regeneration. Until bang. With a resounding bang, the boulder shattered into fragments, thoroughly penetrated by the slender branch. Humans and monsters ultimately have different paths, Yuziyu proclaimed in a chilling tone devoid of any warmth. His words seemed to cast an even colder shadow in the already dark night. Humans and monsters' paths are different? Qing Air murmured softly, her slender fingers playing with a strand of her hair. With a tinge of resignation, she shook her head and added, humans and monsters' parts are forever different. Thinking about the cruel experiments she had witnessed in human laboratories, and recalling her professors who despite their different ideologies had shown a united stance against mutant beasts, Qing Air could not help but suppress the softened corner of her heart. No one was at fault here. They could only lament the fact that everyone had their own positions and everyone was fighting for their survival. Right at this moment, Qing Air suddenly looked toward the vast ocean, a faint smile playing on her lips as if struck by a thought. China should have little time to worry about the mainland now. Yes, there really was little time to spare for the mainland. In the coastal regions, the concentration of spiritual energy has reached its historical peak in recent days. And it had remained that way for several days until now. Such stability, coupled with the unprecedented peak spiritual energy, was cause for concern if nothing significant occurred. Just yesterday, Qing Air had gleaned some information from a conversation between the professors that the island nation surrounded by the sea, known as Japan, was fully mobilized for war. Moreover, numerous cities along the coast had fortified their defenses to the utmost level. However, even so, the island nation Japan was on the brink of peril. Tsunamis and earthquakes had plagued this country for centuries, and now they were faced with an even more dreadful catastrophe, the onslaught of sea creatures. In the face of an overwhelming number of mutant sea beasts, could a nation like Japan truly withstand such an assault? Qing Air, who possessed some knowledge about this country, could not help but feel curious. After all, even the superpower on the other side of the ocean, America, had suffered heavy losses due to a beast tide. Now, how would Japan, who only had military forces that were less than 1% of America, and was surrounded by the sea, would manage? Meanwhile, in a country where cherry blossoms bloomed profusely. With a loud bang, the entire office desk shook violently. Looking up, everyone was startled to find a middle-aged man with two pointed mustaches standing up and slamming the table fiercely with an angry expression. How many days, I'm asking you? How many days has it been? What about the resources promised by America? How much do we give them every year? But now, when our nation is facing an unprecedented crisis. While speaking, the middle-aged man could not help but self-deprecatingly say, until now, our nation has only a little over 1,000 tanks, 980 armored vehicles, and only 511 fighter jets of various types, not counting the damaged ones. As for the remaining artillery, how many do we have? You stand up and answer me loudly. Under the middle-aged man's roar, a panicked-looking young man stood up, trembling, and looked around at the crowd before answering in a hesitant manner, approximately 12,000, and that's just recently, due to countless factories being immediately used for military production day and night. Good, that's great. Hearing this shocking figure, the middle-aged man's face twisted into a grimace. He pointed his fingers one after another at everyone and fiercely stated, 1 round, 2 rounds, 3 rounds, if after the 3rd round of the beast tide, our best ally still hasn't provided support, do you understand what would happen? We'll run out of food and ammunition, our nation will be destroyed. Tell me? However, in the face of the middle-aged man's questioning, no one dared to speak up. It was a question of life and death and no one dared to speak. And at that moment, a voice tinged with a crying tone suddenly broke the deathly silence. Sir, can America really be able to provide support in time? Nowadays, the sea route is laid with countless mutant sea creatures, making it nearly impossible to travel, and the airspace is fraught with unknown mutant birds waiting for an opportunity. Before he could finish the sentence, the entire office fell into a deathly silence. But this time no one dared to even breathe. After all, even if America wanted to, could they be able to even provide support? It was already no longer a question of whether they would or not. The middle-aged man exhaled a long, deep breath. He had been trying his best to avoid this question, but now, someone had to just bring this up at this moment. Well, our last hope is about to be shattered. A bitter smile appeared on his face. The middle-aged man clutched his head, feeling a sense of despair. However, after a long time, as if making a certain decision, the middle-aged man raised his head, cast a look at the crowd before heaving a deep sigh and ordering bitterly, submit to that lion. In the end, distant water cannot extinguish a nearby fire. Instead of relying on that vampire, it's better to. At this point, the middle-aged man's voice became even lower. Evolution begins with a big tree, Chapter 103, Ling Air and the Golden Ant. The next morning, within the heart of a mysterious laboratory, Ling Air slowly opened her eyes. Boom! Faintly, a cluster of flames ignited deep within her eyes. It was materialization of her spiritual energy, an indication of reaching the peak of the Tier 0 Level 9. Ling Air was now only half a step away. If she succeeded, she would become one of the few most powerful existences that stood at the top of the human race. If she failed, she would vanish from the face of this earth. This was the frightening aspect of breaking through to the transcendent realm. Furthermore, not only were the mutant beasts affected, it was even true for humans. It was literally a divine punishment. Until now, apart from the monsters hidden in a few secret laboratories of China, Ling Air had not heard of many people becoming superhumans. At this moment, Ling Air's eyes flickered slightly. She slowly got up, changed her clothes, put on a white mask and left her bedroom. Hello, Senior Ling Air. Senior? Along the way, everyone who caught sight of her figure greeted with a nod, and even bowed respectfully. Ling Air was the prodigy of the #1 Spiritual Energy Research Institute, possessing great strength that few knew about. But that was not the most terrifying part. The most terrifying thing was that Ling Air had achieved all this in just half a year. Although she had the assistance of fire attribute spirit stones, her talent was undeniable. Given her exceptional talent, and as the assistant of several professors, Ling Er's status in this secret genetic research laboratory was among the top few, second only to the professor's. Her lips curled into a faint smile. Even her eyes seemed to be smiling, forming a crescent shape. Though she appeared aloof, Ling Er still gave a certain level of response to the people who greeted her. Shortly after, traveling along a white corridor that stretched hundreds of meters, Ling Er arrived at the deepest part of the laboratory. Looking up, she saw the word genetics. Ha! Exhaling a long, deep breath, Ling Er approached a facing recognition console. Name, Ling Er. A-level access granted. A clear electronic synthesized sound rang in her ears as a metal door not far from Ling Er slowly opened to both sides. The next moment, what entered Ling Er's sight was an enormous hall. Inside the hall there were various petri dishes. Upon closer inspection, each petri dish was filled with green solution, immersed in which were a few or more insects. Many of them also have many severed limbs. As the genetic research laboratory, they naturally conducted various genetic research here. Previously, the werewolf, made by fusing a wolf's gene with a human, which resulted in a monster with the body of human and the head of a wolf, was the product of this place. However, considering the difficulty of controlling genes from larger animals, which caused 99% of humans to lose control of themselves and go insane, the genetic research laboratory had changed its direction and focused on researching the genes of insects, amputated limbs, and small mutant beasts. However, at the deepest part of the hall, roar, roar, faintly mixed among the crazed roars, clanking sounds of countless chains being pulled could be heard. At this moment, Ling Er's eyes caught sight of a silver centipede that was over 20 meters long. Its body seemed to be cast in silver, with each segment emitting a silver glow, giving it an exceptionally ferocious appearance. The silver centipede, the only disaster class Tier 2 transcendent caught by China inland. Because of its existence, the genetic research laboratory had made frequent breakthroughs in genetic research. Some of the experimental results left even Ling Er astonished. However, the price paid for it was that the body of this over 20-meter-long silver centipede had been dismembered by more than half. Yet, it still persisted due to the tenacious vitality unique to Tier 2 transcendence. According to Ling Er's estimation, in a few months or at most a couple of weeks, this Tier 2 silver centipede would almost reach the end of its life. At that time, hidden behind her white mask, the corner of Ling Er's lips curved, outlining an eerie arc. Seemingly laughing, yet also seemingly anticipating. Even a cluster of flames were ignited within the depths of her eyes. Just then, as if noticing Ling Er's arrival, a very old voice sounded from afar. Ling Er, you're here, come lend me a hand. Okay, oldly. Replying, Ling Er immediately walked towards an elderly man with silver hair. Oldly was one of the highest-ranking professors in the genetic research laboratory and one of the main scientists of the genetic experiments. According to rumors, it was because of his efforts that China established its first spiritual energy research institute. Up until today, through satellite communication, China was astonished to discover that they seemed to be at the forefront of spiritual energy research. Apart from certain countries in Europe, even America was lagging behind. And all of this was due to this old man who, upon confirming the resurgence of spiritual energy, directly mobilized national forces to establish the first spiritual energy research institution. This illustrated this old man's status in China today. Casually taking the white lab coat handed to her by a scientist and putting it on, Ling Er asked with a gleaming smile, "Oldly, did you succeed again?" Hearing Ling Er's question, Elderly nodded with pride. Then, as if unable to contain himself, he laughed triumphantly. We did it, we did it." Saying so, he pointed at a nearby petri dish and explained, "We have completely activated the gene that symbolizes this golden ant's strength. It can be said that this any, which was capable of lifting objects over 400 times its own weight and carrying objects over 1,700 times its own weight, has had its natural talents significantly enhanced by our experiments. If my guess is correct, it should now be able to lift objects over 4,000 times its own weight." As he spoke of this, the silver-haired old man suddenly sighed as if recalling something and regretfully continued, "Unfortunately, we won't be able to witness the mutation of this golden ant." Ling Er's face slightly froze, and she looked toward a giant ant with a length of 5 centimeters not far away. Its body seemed as if cast from liquid gold. She could not help but ask why. Alas, by forcibly unlocking its talents, the vitality of this golden ant is nearly depleted. It won't be long before, before he could finish, the silver-haired old man's gaze shifted to the other petri dishes, and he smiled and continued, "But fortunately, we've obtained the experimental data. Now the success rate of activating it again has reached 20%. At this point, Old Lee seemed to have thought of something and added, "Take this ant back and study it again. I want to see your analysis and understanding of it." Nodding, Ching Er readily agreed. But the next moment, as if she remembered something, Ching Er suddenly stated, "Old Lee, I would like to request a leave of absence." "A leave?" "Yes, a leave. It's been a long time since I went back home. I miss my parents." "Is that so?" After contemplating for a moment, Old Lee nodded his permission. "All right then. Since that's the case, go back for a while. But remember, it's only for a week. We're in the final stage of the silver centipede experiment, and we can't do without you." "Okay," nodding, Ching Er replied with a smile. Evolution begins with a big tree, Chapter 104, City Construction. In the heart of North Canyon, a voice suddenly rang in Yuziu's mind. "Master, I'll be coming back." "That's great." Nodding, Yuziu curled his lips. He naturally understood that by coming back, Ching Er was not referring to herself, but the body she was occupying and controlling. This time, Yuziu's plan was to create a forbidden zone, which was of great importance to him. To prevent any unexpected incidents, Ching Er would personally guide certain individuals into the Misty Mountain. Even if any accidents were to occur, Ching Er, as the one leading them into the Misty Mountain, could handle the aftermath and prevent Yuziu's exposure. But before that, with a thought, Yuziu's real body started shaking fiercely, boom boom boom, accompanied by fearsome tremors. The ground in his vicinity transformed into a swamp with ripples that were visible to the naked eye. Yes, swamp. What Yuziu had done was manipulate the earth element and alter the geology. Simultaneously. Bit by bit. Little by little. Yuziu's body truly began to sink into the ground. Looking from the distance, one would see Yuziu's towering body slowly but constantly sinking into the ground. Until not long after, it completely disappeared into the earth. "Oh my God," a surprised cry rang as the nearby Qing gang was dumbfounded. "Gone, completely gone. The divine tree has really disappeared." He could not believe it, but Qing gang was also astonished by the extraordinary ability of the divine tree. To sink within the earth, with the entire trunk, was a means that only a few could comprehend. And at this moment, Yuziu, who had sunk about 50 meters deep into the ground and had breathed a sigh of relief. In his eyes, he saw reddish-yellow earth with a hint of black, with occasional rocks scattered around. Unfortunately, the underground was as quiet as death, devoid of even the smallest creatures such as ants and worms. Yuziu heaved a sigh. He could not help but feel a little helpless. The greatest drawback of sinking into the earth was precisely this. There was nothing. All that remained was rocks and soil, along with an indescribable loneliness. However, a smile danced upon his lips as he thought of something. If there is nothing, then can't I just create it? Until now, he had not given up his plan of building an underground kingdom. On the surface, the shroud of mist would turn the mountains and forests into the domain of mist beasts, turning it into a forbidden zone. Meanwhile, Yuziu would hide deep within the earth, establishing an underground kingdom. No, it should be called an underground dynasty. A terrifying dynasty centered around me alone. Thinking of this, Yuziu grew excited, boom boom boom, accompanied by thunderous rumbles. The black subroots stretching for kilometers beneath the ground began to roll around underground like a dragon. At a depth of around 500 meters, there was an underground plaza, now stacked with piles of spirit stones. And now, Yuziu wanted to create a city about 100 meters deep underground. However, achieving this on his own might be difficult. At present, he could still create a huge underground space no smaller than North Canyon. He would then dig out a lake and use the spiritual energy emitted by his body to cultivate spirit flower and grasses. Furthermore, he could also illuminate the dark underground space with the faint glimmer emitted by his branches. If everything went well, a paradise no less than North Canyon would be born. Moreover, when necessary, he could embed walls with earth attribute spirit stones. Not only would it isolate the fluctuation of spiritual energy, but it would also serve as decoration. As he made a plan in his mind, Yuziu smiled in his heart, feeling more pleased with himself. Meanwhile, with the assistance of the two enormous black roots, resembling flood dragons, a massive space was completely created underground. The space was about 60 meters high, revealing a significant portion of Yuziu's body. As his branches trembled lightly, Yuziu noticed that the ceiling above his canopy was still quite far away. If everything went as expected, he still had the room to grow for some time before reaching the ceiling. At that time he could submerge his tree trunk into the ground once again. Raising his gaze, Yuziu saw a vast underground space before him, occupying an area no less than 3 to 4 football fields. This plaza was formed by Yuziu's 2 massive roots that had turned into flood dragons by forcibly pushing away the soil and rocks, creating the entire space. Now the surrounding rock walls were impressively thick. And there was nothing surprising about it. Yuziu's roots were capable of splitting a mountain range, so compressing the soil and rocks to a terrifying extent was also possible. Just a moment ago, even the misty mountains above the ground felt as if shaking from an earthquake, as if the crust itself was shifting. Although the movement of the crust was an illusion, it illustrated Yuziu's terrifying power. And now, after deeply observing the immense underground space, the only thing Yuziu felt was lacking was the absence of a sky overhead, which made him feel a little oppressed. As for everything else, it's perfect, totally perfect. I'll later decorate the walls with earth attribute spirit stones, and Qing air can plant the spirit flowers and grasses at night. Right, there was also the essential requirement of oxygen for plants and animals. However, Yuziu had also already taken this into consideration. Given the enormous size of his body, the oxygen he exhaled was enough to fill this underground space. Meanwhile, some of his roots and branches silently emerged from the ground, winding around the trees and rocks in the misty mountain, allowing him to absorb sunlight, convert it into evolution points and perform photosynthesis as well. This way, any remaining shortcomings of the underground space could be resolved. Smiling, Yuziu heaved a long and deep breath. I've considered everything that's needed. As for what I hadn't thought of, aren't there still humans here? At a later date, I can entrust the task of further developing the underground plaza. It's imperative to create the prototype of a city exclusively for the mutant beasts. Once this prototype is complete, I can use it as a center to continuously expand and create a bigger space. At that time, some of my roots can continue to spread into the ground. They can support most of the land to prevent the collapse of the underground space. At the end of the day, the construction of an underground city requires steel and concrete, materials that humans use. Unless I can deepen my understanding of the earth element and forcibly alter the soil structure, I can only rely on roots as the framework. Of course, in the short term, using roots as the framework is feasible. After all, my roots are idle. It's better to spread them like a spider's web across the land and use them as the framework to support the city. Evolution begins with a big tree, Chapter 105, Arrival of Soldiers. While Yuziu was busy constructing the underground city, not far from the misty mountains in a city nearby, a girl dressed in a white military uniform, exuding a confident and spirited aura, was eagerly looking at the intersection. If everything went as planned, Senior Ling Air should be arriving soon. Biting her red lips, Yang Lung Ling could not help but murmur to herself. Not long after, a black jeep caught Yang Lung Ling's attention. From afar, when she saw a girl wearing a duckbill cap sitting in the passenger seat, Yang Lung Ling's face lit up with joy, and she excitedly shouted, "Senior Ling Air." As she spoke, she even performed a standard military salute. Ling Air nodded slightly and shot a glance at her, but she did not say anything in response. Yang Lung Ling was just one of the girls who followed her. There were 4 such girls in total. By the looks of it, that impromptu decision back then was right. At least, this chess piece played its expected role. Thinking about it, Ling Air, who had already gotten off the jeep, turned around and cast a glance at the gray-white mist in the distance. At this moment, Yang Lung Ling, who had noticed Ling Air's gaze, took the initiative to speak up. "Senior Ling Air, the fluctuations of spiritual energy in the misty mountains have calmed down for now." Speaking of this, Yang Lung Ling added with some unease, "However, the misty mountains are still a significant hidden danger. It was reported that not long ago, a high-level mutant beast attacked a city not far from here, causing numerous casualties." "Are these mutant beasts attacking cities now?" Seemingly surprised, Ling Air turned around and asked. "Yes." Nodding, Yang Lung Ling further added with concern, "I'm a bit worried. If the mutant beasts from the misty mountains were to break out." Before Yang Lung Ling could finish, Ling Air waved her hand to interrupt her. "Rest assured, the Spiritual Energy Monitoring Bureau hasn't detected any significant spiritual energy fluctuations in the misty mountains. Even if those low and intermediate level mutant beasts were to attack together, they wouldn't be able to withstand the defenses we've deployed around the city. That's true. Seeing Ling Er speak with such confidence, Yang Lung Ling felt a sense of relief. Maybe she is right. Without any high-level mutant beasts, those low and intermediate-level mutant beasts did not have the qualifications to worry humans. And right at this moment, looking at Ling Er's departing figure, Yang Lung Ling quickly chased after her and stated, as if she had thought of something, "Senior Ling Er, just half a day ago, the military organized a 10-man team to conduct a new round of exploration of the Misty Mountains." Ling Er's footsteps momentarily paused, but she remained silent. Instead, she adjusted her black duckbill cap, seemingly concealing some subtle expressions. Then she lifted her foot and continued walking. Do they really want to see the bloodshed? Muttering in her heart, fiery red flames seemed to flicker in between her bright red hair. Meanwhile, deep underground in North Canyon, Yuziyu suddenly froze. He looked up and saw a flash of red light coming from a rock wall in the underground plaza. Immediately after, a phantom-like figure in red emerged. "You've returned in broad daylight," Yuziyu stated with a hint of surprise, curiously glancing at Qing Er. "Just arrived at the city? I'm resting there for now," Qing Er casually responded. She further added, as if she had thought of something, "Master, there will probably be quite a few unexpected visitors coming later." Unexpected visitors? Nodding, Qing Er continued the explanation. "The military regularly sends a team to conduct inspections of the Yellow Zone. And now a 10-man team is about to arrive." "Another team is coming?" Yuziyu's movement stopped, he could not help but murmur. The military was never a word to be ignored, not in the past and even more so now. At this point, Qing Er added, "Master, the current military is different from before. Since the resurgence of Special Superhuman, China has already started to form the Special Superhuman Forces, SSF. And now, the SSF has already expanded to hundreds of thousands, distributed among the various units. In other words, every reconnaissance team now has one or two superhumans more or less." Listening to Qing Er's account, Yuziyu could not help but shake his head. The human race, or rather, China, proved to be incredibly efficient in this regard. It had not been long since the resurgence of spiritual energy, yet they had already established a special superhuman forces of hundreds of thousands. Moreover, they dispersed the SSF among various units for training. However, Yuziyu believed that such a human country was probably the only one of its kind. While it was true that the population of superhumans would continue to increase with the continuous resurgence of spiritual energy, there would not be another country capable of establishing a unit of superhumans as vast as China's, with several 100,000 members. It was worth mentioning that the population of China had already exceeded 2 billion. With such a large population base, this nation possessed limitless possibilities. Sighing in his heart, Yuziyu no longer felt nervous. He already had complete control over the Misty Mountains. By sending a team, it was no different than sending them to the tiger's den. Their life and death were in his hands. Moreover, what was even more crucial was that with the mist beasts deceiving their eyes and ears, Yuziyu seemed to have nothing to fear anymore. With this in mind, a cold smile curled up on Yuziyu's lips. He hoped that the visitors would be nothing more than useless individuals, like ordinary humans who would simply circle around the outskirts and then leave. Otherwise, if there were superhumans among them with intuition similar to Chen Qin, capable of venturing deep into the Misty Mountains, then Yuziyu's hands would be forced and they would have to remain here eternally. As Yuziyu's thoughts spun. Boom, 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 the ground started quaking fiercely. If someone was looking from a distance, they would see a towering giant willow tree emerging within the heart of North Canyon. The dense fog rolled back as if welcoming its arrival. For a moment, the entire canyon was captivated by this sight. Divine tree, divine tree. Excited shouts echoed one after another, while Qing Gang quickly ran over. "I thought you would never come out again. I was worried." This guy. Looking at the sturdy young man, Yuziyu was slightly moved. Compared to Chen Qin and Lung Feng, Qing Gang was clearly more loyal to him. And his competence was not lacking either. With these thoughts in mind, Yuziyu could not help but wonder. Should I really trust this guy? Although for now, Yuziyu only intended to let Qing Gang be in charge of the underground city. But the underground city was Yuziyu's true headquarters. It must never be known by outsiders. The only one to lay his eyes on it would either be a comrade or a dead person. Yuziyu heaved a soft sigh, finding it difficult to make a decision at that moment. However, when it came to the construction of the city, only the human race, the most intelligent species, was capable of achieving it. Yet, humans were also the most unpredictable factor. Evolution begins with a big tree, Chapter 106, Ling Er's Mysterious Gift. After much deliberation, Yuziyu could not come to a clear conclusion. However, a faintly complex expression appeared in his eyes as he looked at Qing Gang. At that moment, Qing Er, who was standing nearby, seemed to have a thought and beckoned, summoning a peregrine falcon, screech. With a sharp cry, the leader of the peregrine falcons, Falai, landed on Qing Er's outstretched hand. Looking at the fist-sized and adorable peregrine falcon, Qing Er could not help but laugh lightly. "Master, these ferocious birds you raised have turned cute." "Cute? How is that possible?" Saying so, Yuziyu shot a glance at the peregrine falcon and pretended to be stern. "Falai, show Qing Er how fierce you are." Seeming to understand Yuziyu's intention, Falai vigorously nodded. Then its gaze shifted, locked onto Qing Er, screech. Accompanied by a screech, Falai spread its wings as its black and white feathers stood on end. However, the small body did not exude a fierce aura no matter how you looked at it. Instead, its puffed-up body looked like a young hedgehog. Covering her mouth, Qing Er could not help but burst into a melodious laughter. Speechless and dumbfounded, Yuziyu felt that his face turned black. So embarrassing. How could this guy be so useless? As the ruler of the sky, you. Unable to find the right words, Yuziyu could only avert his gaze, pretending not to see. At that moment, Qing Er looked at Yuziyu, pursed her lips, and then leaned down to whisper something in Falai's ear. When Yuziyu redirected his gaze, he saw Falai suddenly spread its wings and transform into a streak of black light, soaring into the sky. "Qing Er, what's this?" Before Yuziyu could say any further, Qing Er swiftly put her finger to her lips, gesturing for silence. "Master, don't ask, I want to give you a surprise." Momentarily stunned, Yuziyu could not help but feel curious. Surprise? What surprise? Could there still be something that can surprise me? Full of doubt, Yuziyu chose to patiently wait in silence. Meanwhile, in the outskirts of the city not far from Misty Mountains, Ling Er woke up after a short nap, boom. Same as ever, flames flickered in the depths of her eyes, and her vibrant red hair had sparkling crimson glow flowing through them. "Master will definitely love this gift." Saying so, Ling Er's lips curved into a beautiful smile. Immediately after, Ling Er reached out and grabbed a black cylindrical object resembling a bamboo tube that was lying on the table. She then dashed toward a small grove behind the house. Ling Er's speed was astonishing, resembling a dragonfly skimming the water's surface. With each step she covered several meters. In the blink of an eye, Ling Er had already covered 100 meters. For a Tier 0 Level 9 expert like her, this speed was normal. She was just a step away from becoming a superhuman, and without such speed how could she evade bullets? Moreover, she possessed the top-tier fire attribute elemental talent, far stronger than an ordinary Tier 0 Level 9 superhuman. At that moment, as if she had thought of something, Ling Er suddenly spread her psychic power. After confirming that there was no one nearby, her entire body came to a halt. Then she heaved a long deep breath, as exhaled a fragrant breath, her vibrant red hair started dancing in the air. At the same time, countless red specks of light slowly gathered at her feet. Crimson flame steps. As she muttered to herself, the gathered red light underneath her feet suddenly contracted. Then with a resounding book, they exploded, creating a magnificent display of fiery flames. Accompanying the explosion, Ling Er shot forward like an arrow released from a bow, moving several times faster than before. From a distance, one could see her figure flickering like fireworks as she vanished into the groove in the blink of an eye. Only the black footprints not far away seemed to silently convey something. Crimson Flame Steps was a combat technique that existed only in theory. Mutant beasts possessed various innate talents and unique abilities, but as primates, humans even after awakening their abilities only had innate talents, and those strange and rare abilities were rare. Thus, some experts proposed the idea of combat techniques, using precise techniques coupled with a burst of spiritual energy to unleash combat power several times greater than their own. However, this idea remained only theoretical. It was known that, so far, most of China had yet to develop combat techniques suitable for actual combat. One reason was that humans had evolved relatively late, and many people had yet not reached the level that they would come in contact with combat techniques. The experts were merely discussing them on paper. The second reason was that combat techniques were complex and required precise control of spiritual energy. Fortunately, Ling Er's psychic talent had also awakened, and her powerful psychic power allowed her to control spiritual energy far beyond the understanding of ordinary people. It was precisely for this reason that Ling Er could quickly learn some combat technique that only existed in theory. Just like the Crimson Flame Steps, it was a prototype of a combat technique proposed by a human expert based on the principles of explosion and recoil. And using this prototype from the human expert, Ling Er quickly mastered a combat technique that was unique to herself, the Crimson Flame Steps. However, due to certain reasons, Ling Er was unwilling to attract too much attention from humans. So even if she wanted to use it, she would only practice it in secluded places with no one around. Today, taking advantage of her departure from the laboratory, Ling Er could finally use the combat technique to her heart's content. She slightly curled her lips as a rare expression of satisfaction appeared on her face. If she was not a mere soul, she would truly deserve the title of human prodigy. After rushing for a while, Ling Er arrived in a section of the forest seldom visited by anyone. She looked up at the sky. It should be here any time now. Muttering to herself, Ling Er estimated the time. And mere moments later. Screech. A shrill and piercing cry suddenly echoed through the sky. It's here. Smiling, Ling Er's gaze shifted to the sky. The next moment. Swoosh, accompanied by the sound of something tearing through the air, a black streak of light shot down from the horizon. Catch. Saying so, Ling Er's hand was suddenly wrapped in a strand of red light. And then, with a backhand toss, a cylindrical object wrapped in black cloth flew into the sky. Evolution begins with a big tree, Chapter 107, The Fifth Beast, Golden Ant. Meanwhile, deep within the heart of North Canyon, Wuxia did not wait for too long. Rather, the distance was not much of an issue in the face of the terrifying speed of the peregrine falcon, which had already surpassed the speed of sound. Raising his gaze, looking at Foul Eye, who was shooting over from the horizon like a straight streak of black light, Wuxia's branch also moved. Swoosh, accompanied by a sound of something cutting through the air, Wuxia's branch shot toward at lightning-fast speed. By the time Foul Eye reacted, the black cylinder in his talons had already vanished all of a sudden. Screech. With a puzzled expression, Foul Eye's lightning-fast figure froze in the air, then looked around in panic and confusion, screeching in alarm. It was until a moment later that its sharp eyes spotted a black bamboo tube bound at the end of a branch. It complained a few times as if expressing dissatisfaction. Wuxia mischievously chuckled, paying no heed to the complaints. He would rarely act, but now that he did, his move demonstrated just how formidable he was now. Even the peregrine falcon, which was most skilled in speed, could not react to his whip-like shadow. One could imagine what it signified. Wuxia was confident now. Even if countless bullets rained down on him like arrows, he could ensure not a single one would touch him. Moreover, he would return the favor in kind with a speed surpassing than before. And this was the Tier 2 Transcendent, hailed by humans as an embodiment of disaster, capable of laying a city to waste. Smiling, Wuxia finally shifted his gaze to the nearby black bamboo tube bound in his branch. Thanks to his strength, he could sense weak vitality fluctuations coming from inside the tube. It was very weak, very, very weak, but incredibly tenacious, as if it were making a final struggle. What's this? Confused, Wuxia used his branch to slowly remove the black cloth wrapped around the tube. In a moment, to his astonished gaze, he discovered that it was not a bamboo tube beneath the black cloth, but a test tube. A test tube exclusive to humans. What surprised Wuxia even more was that inside the test tube was a golden ant, as if cast from pure gold. Not far away, a wisp of red smoke rose and materialized into a graceful figure. Watching Wuxia removing the cloth around the test tube, Qing Er pouted and seemed slightly dissatisfied as she stated, "Master, you opened it without waiting for me to return." Listening to Qing Er's coquettish voice, Wuxia chuckled and justified himself, "I was just curious." Speaking of which, Wuxia straightforwardly asked, "Is this the gift you prepared for me?" And Qing Er held only respect and admiration in her heart for her master, so any hint of dissatisfaction was definitely just an act. In response to her master's question, Qing Er nodded excitedly. Then, seeing that her master seemed indifferent, Qing Er's corners of mouth twitched slightly, and she explained, "Master, take a good look at this little guy. It is the most cutting-edge scientific and technological achievement of mankind." Saying so, Qing Er further added, "This golden ant is the result of half a year of human experiments. They had to sacrifice billions of ants to create such a miracle." Billions? Miracle? Listening to Qing Er's account, Yu Ziyu could not hide his astonishment. How could that be possible? Just for this tiny ant? At this moment, sensing Yu Ziyu's thoughts, Qing Er rolled her eyes helplessly and added, "Master, you should know that if it weren't for this ant's weak vitality, with only a few days of life left, my professor wouldn't have allowed me to dissect it in the end. In order to give it to you, it'll require some effort and persuasion on my end when I return in a few days." All right. Although he was somewhat surprised at Qing Er's decision of bringing back such a precious experimental subject, Yu Ziyu could not help but nod. However, he wanted to see why this tiny ant was worth taking such a great risk and being offered as a gift by Qing Er. With these thoughts in mind, Yu Ziyu's eyes narrowed slightly. In a moment, to his wide-eyed astonishment, a rather luxurious attribute panel appeared. Race, Mutant Golden Ant. Life, 2 days. Rank, Tier 0 Level 1. Innate Talent, Earth-Shaking Strength. The ant race's innate talent of strength has evolved again, possessing terrifying potential far surpassing ordinary innate talents. Its actual strength is 100 times that of an ordinary mutant ant's. It is a true talent of strength. Abilities, Sharp Scales. Terrifying strength can only be carried by a powerful body. Its body is enveloped in a layer of golden scales resembling armor, unawakened. 6 legs. Its sharp and scythe-like legs, under the influence of its terrifying strength, can cut through anything, unawakened. Yu Ziyu was truly dumbfounded when he laid his eyes upon the status screen. Just how terrifying is this guy's talent? It has only reached the Tier 0 Level 1, but it has already awakened its innate talent, and it possesses 2 abilities. While its abilities were not awakened, Yu Ziyu could tell that it was because the ant's body was too weak at the moment. In other words, its current body could not bear the burden of these abilities, and out of biological instinct, they were temporarily closed off to prevent further strain on the body. "Master, isn't this golden ant's talent terrifying?" Qing Er, who knew a bit about Yu Ziyu, naturally knew that her master seemed to be able to see through the innate talents of creatures. "Indeed, it's quite insane." Nodding slightly, Yu Ziyu shifted his gaze back to Qing Er and smiled. "Qing Er, you've really given me a pleasant surprise." He, playfully smiling, a hint of pride showed on Qing Er's face. "As long as you like it." As she said this, Qing Er's thoughts seemed to wander as she suddenly stated in concern, "Master, this little fellow is too weak due to the human genetic experiments. It has very little vitality left. I'm afraid." Before she could finish her sentence, Yu Ziyu naturally understood what Qing Er meant. "Don't worry." After assuring Qing Er, Yu Ziyu's gaze shifted back to the golden ant lying in the test tube not far away, seemingly asleep. As if making a promise, he stated softly, "Since I have taken a liking to it, it cannot escape." Saying this, Yu Ziyu continued as if introducing, "Qing Er, from now on, let's call it Little Fifth. From this moment, it will be the 5th beast under my command, the golden ant." Evolution begins with a big tree, Chapter 108, A Mighty Fierce Beast. The 5th beast under Yu Ziyu's command, the golden ant. This was not a spur-of-the-moment decision by Yu Ziyu, it had been planned for a long time. All along, Yu Ziyu had wanted to complete the 9 beasts under his command. Of course, it's worth mentioning that the term beast did not refer to ordinary land-dwelling creatures, but rather a symbol of boundless potential. It signified that each of them had the terrifying potential to become a peak existence. As mentioned before, Yu Ziyu originally wanted to call them divine beasts, but unfortunately they were not yet qualified. Therefore he could only take a step back and use the term beasts. Now, looking at the terrifying talent of the golden ant, how could Yu Ziyu not be moved? As for the vitality of this golden ant, was there a need to worry? Whenever one went through advancement, they would also gain an extension of lifespan. Moreover, his life essence could nourish vitality. As for the human researchers, while they knew that the talent of the golden ant was formidable, they were troubled by its limited remaining vitality. Since the golden ant was of different species, even if they had life-restoring spirit flowers and grass, they wouldn't use them on it. After all, there wasn't enough to go around. Those high-ranking individuals, which one of them did not lack vitality. A sneer appeared on Yuziu's lips as he gently opened the test tube and took the golden ant out. The golden ant was very small, not even as big as an average person's thumb. Yet, under Yuziu's delicate movements, the branch gently wrapped around its body. Then Yuziu shifted his gaze to the nearby spirit lake. Yuziu's life essence had abundant vitality. To prevent any missteps, he intended to cautiously use the diluted spirit essence from the spirit lake to nurture the ant. With this in mind, Yuziu extended a branch into the water of the spirit lake. After a moment, with the branch soaked in spirit essence, he carefully lifted it above the golden ant. Drip, drip, accompanied by the dripping of the spirit essence, the body of the golden ant trembled slightly, and the antennae on its head swayed as if expressing its liking. Good, that's great. Complimenting twice with laughter, Yuziu restrained his excitement before continuing to drip the spirit essence. He did not expect this weak golden ant to be able to withstand the baptism of spiritual energy without any burden. It should be noted that even ordinary Tier 1 mutant insects could not help but cry out in pain when they fell into the spirit lake. Although the spirit essence was beneficial, it was too powerful for small insects like them. One wrong move and they would blow up. And at this moment, as Yuziu continued to drip the spirit essence, the golden ant seemed to have smelled something as its antennae kept stretching towards the sky. After some hesitation, Yuziu decided to place the golden ant into the spirit lake. Now, it seems that this golden ant should be able to absorb the diluted spirit essence. Yuziu's branch gently placed the golden ant into the nearby spirit lake. Not long after, as the golden ant fell into the spirit lake, its whole body trembled. Then, to the astonished gazes of Yuziu and Qing'er, the golden ant caused a vortex around itself, boom, star. Accompanied by a terrifying suction force, half of the spirit lake started shaking. From a distance, it looked as if countless streams of spirit lake water were rushing into the golden ant. At this moment, an inexplicable frequency started propagating in the air. It seemed like a celebration of rebirth, yet also excitement, a frequency imperceptible to ordinary people rapidly propagated. Master, it's rejoicing, stated Qing'er in an excited voice, sensing the ant's psychic fluctuations. Indeed. Nodding, Yuziu smiled and exclaimed, I must say, the talent of this golden ant is truly formidable. At just Tier 0 level 1, it caused such commotion when absorbing the spirit essence. It's evident how terrifying this golden ant is. At this time, seemingly aware of the commotion in the spirit lake, the humans led by Qing'er as well as mutant beasts like the white tiger hurriedly approached. However, before they could get close, Yuziu's branch swung, boom, accompanied by swirling mist. A trail in the mist separated them from the spirit lake. Sir Divine Tree doesn't want us to approach Spirit Lake. Saying so, Qing'er waved his hand toward the others and shouted, Disperse, disperse, we can't approach this place. Having said so, he was the first to leave the vicinity of the spirit lake. This fellow is quite capable. Yuziu nodded in appreciation, watching the young man leading away the humans and even mutant beasts like a butler. This guy is good at reading the situation, and even conveys my intentions to others by setting an example. A person like him is undoubtedly an indispensable talent in many ways. As these thoughts crossed his mind, Yuziu started making plans. Meanwhile, the commotion of the spirit lake gradually subsided. Looking toward the lake, Yuziu found a humanoid figure standing in the center of the spirit lake. Its 2 legs were on the surface of the water, while the other 4 legs danced in the air like sickles slashing through the air. The antennae on its head occasionally swayed as if searching for something. However, upon closer inspection, one would definitely notice that it was different from before. Its size had doubled. Its entire body was covered in a layer of golden scale-like armor. These scales happened to have enveloped not only the golden ant's body, but even its slim and tiny legs. Yet, what was even more eye-catching were the eyes behind the antennae on top of its head. These were compound eyes and much more terrifying than ordinary ones. One glance at them and anyone could easily notice a fierce and menacing gleam in them. Its surging killing intent was giving them an eerie and hair-raising shine. With its shiny scales and entirely golden body, coupled with its menacing appearance, this golden ant exuded a powerful aura, making it look even more menacing. Disque, what a fierce beast. Amid laughter, one of Yu's branches tore through the air and shot towards the golden ant. The next moment, the golden ant seemed to have sensed something. It swiftly kicked the surface of water and actually leaped into the air, avoiding the attack. However, no matter how agile it was, it could not compare to the 360-degree all-angle maneuverability of Yu's branch, which could attack without leaving any blind spots. Swoosh. The branch lightly twisted like a snake and headed straight toward it once again. However, to Yu's astonishment, the golden ant, which had already leaped into the air, suddenly slashed out its 4 legs, schlick, schlick, one strike after another, it accurately hit Yu's branch. What was even more astonishing was that each strike brought forth a series of sparks. Good speed, powerful insight, and a terrifying strength that can't be ignored. With a simple evaluation, Yu fully realized the frightening aspects of this ant. Evolution begins with a big tree, Chapter 109, The Rebellious Little Creature. Boom boom boom. Accompanied by terrifying tremors, the entire canyon seemed to be experiencing an earthquake. Looking up at the base of a steep cliff, there was a finger-sized, golden-coated humanoid ant, hacking and slashing at the cliff with its 4 legs that resembled scythes. Occasionally it would even throw punches, smashing fiercely onto the ground. However, this seemingly small golden ant left everyone stunned. I can't believe it. Is this for real? Just a tiny ant like this? Dozens of meters away, Qing Gang gestured with his finger and exclaimed, "Either times have changed or my eyes are playing tricks on me. This little ant is actually single-handedly shaking the entire canyon." A stiff expression appeared on Lung Feng's face as he played with his dagger and looked at the distant golden ant. Cold sweat trickled down his forehead. This is too terrifying. It's shaking the entire canyon with its own brute strength. If it were formidable creatures like White Tiger or even Sarcosuchus, it would not have been surprising, but such a small ant. Exhaling a deep breath, Lung Feng calmed his horrified heart. Then, his gaze shifted and he seemed to have discovered something. His pupils instantly constricted. Not far away, a colossal white tiger the size of a small hill was slowly approaching the golden ant, which was still focused on hacking and slashing the cliff. Little by little, bit by bit, he moved forward like a soldier crawling on the ground, until he was about 5 meters behind the golden ant. Howl! With a terrifying tiger roar, White Tiger lunged at the golden ant. However, before he could reach the golden ant, a cold voice suddenly rang in his mind. "Third brother, if you dare to pounce on me, I'll cut you down." The tiger's face stiffened. And as he was halfway through the pounce, his large body propped up on his hind legs, the large white tiger suddenly changed direction and leaped toward another direction. Then, several tiger roars followed, seemingly saying, "Just kidding, just kidding." The golden ant made a cold snot, and then, without even turning its head, coldly rebuked, "No wonder Lord Divine Tree says you're stupid. You have already reached level 9, and you still can't do telepathy." The white tiger did not know what to say. He felt like finding a hole to bury himself. Where did this damn little fifth come from? It's already terrifying by possessing such terrifying strength at Tier 0 level 5, but how can it use telepathy too? Now the white tiger felt like he had lost all his dignity. Woo-woo, whimpering softly a few times, the white tiger shot a glance in the direction of Divine Tree, then quietly turned around and chose to leave. This is no longer fun. I will go find other cute little things to play with. Meanwhile, in the distance, Yu and Xiaoqing, witnessing this, could not help but laugh and cry. That's so funny. Old Third must be feeling hopeless. Probably. After all, Little Fifth can do telepathy at just Tier 0 level 5, while he can't even say a word. Speaking of this, Yu could not help but sigh. Little Fifth indeed has extraordinary talent, but what? Upon hearing Yu's somewhat worried tone, Qing Er asked in surprise, but Little Fifth had a difficult upbringing. Under human experimentation, it witnessed the death of countless clansmen and experienced countless experiments. Sigh, it must have left deep scars in its heart. Nodding in silence, Qing Er seemed to have thought of something as suddenly a nonchalant smile flashed on her lips. But, Master, Little Fifth is quite close to you. In just half a day it already listens only to you. That's true. After all, I'm the one who saved him. Smirking, Yu found it quite fortunate. The golden ant maintained a menacing look toward everyone else, but he showed particular respect for him. He even kneeled on one knee in reverence when meeting him, just like a human. According to Qing Er, the golden ant had not only been involved in genetic experiments but also underwent brain domain development experiments, exposing him to various knowledge. In other words, he understood many things. He was just unable to express them before. But now that he had grown to Tier 0 level 5, he could clearly express his thoughts and even control his actions. At this moment, as if he thought of something, Yu Ziyu's branch suddenly beckoned Little Fifth. Looking at the branch, Little Fifth, the golden ant in the distance, swiftly approached Yu Ziyu without a moment of hesitation, then kneeled before him, paying his respects. "Greetings, Lord Divine Trine." "Good." Nodding, Yu Ziyu suggested, "There is a spirit stone plaza underground. You can go there to cultivate using the spirit stones." Then he added a reminder, "If you want to hone your strength, you can also unleash it hundreds of meters underground. I don't even mind if you create an underground space for yourself." "Yes, Lord Divine Trine." Lowering the antenna on the top of his head, the golden ant bowed. However, if someone carefully observed Little Fifth's expression, they would be surprised to notice that the indomitable look on his face never disappeared, not even for a moment. Untamed, talented, and born with ferocity. Certainly Little Fifth was truly to Yu Ziyu's liking. Moreover, the most critical factor was his golden-scaled armor all over his body, that made him look like an ancient general clad in armor, making him look quite heroic. Grinning, Yu Ziyu felt that making him the fifth beast was indeed the right choice. After all, there was no shortage of talented creatures in the entire North Canyon. For instance, the golden monkey had the talent of extreme absorption, which allows him to strengthen his body by absorbing spirit treasures. With such talent, it would not have been a problem to become Yu Ziyu's fifth beast. Unfortunately, that little fellow was inherently unruly and could not be tamed. Unless he underwent trials or training for some time, he really was not qualified. This qualification was not about talent but about character. However, Little Fifth possessed excellent talent and character, making him worthy of the title of Yu Ziyu's fifth beast. Speaking of which, while old third, White Tiger seems silly, he never takes fighting lightly. As the king of beasts, he had his own pride. Due to this pride, he was unwilling to fall behind others. He not only kept up with his daily cultivating, but he also showed signs of doubling his efforts. As for occasionally catching butterflies, it was just his nature and could not be changed. After all, he is a member of the cat family. When not lacking food, his behavior was not much different from a domestic cat. He liked to play with moving objects and was very curious. When he first saw Little Fifth, he could not help but size him up. He even wanted to play with him. However, unfortunately, the current White Tiger seemed to be seriously depressed. He lay on the ground alone, using his tiger claws to repeatedly write the word human on the ground. Evolution begins with a big tree, Chapter 110, Outer, Inner, and Center. As the sun gradually set, the orange glow colored everything. Meanwhile, at the outskirts of the misty mountains, a group of people wiped the sweat off their foreheads, revealing a sense of relief. "We finally made it in. The Misty Mountains lives up to its name. It's really not easy to traverse. Yeah, we've been circling around in the same spot for at least 6 or 7 hours from morning until now. I've lost track of time. It must be dusk now. Look at the dense fog in the sky, it has a tinge of orange." As someone pointed it out, a group of fully armed soldiers raised their heads to observe the sky. Misty Mountains were devoid of the bright sun and clouds. There was only a vast expanse of white mist and faint rays of light filtering through. Be that as it may, these rays provided some indication of the time. Through the tinted mist, the soldiers could roughly determine the time of day. "Let's set up camp for the night and venture deeper at dawn." Saying so, a man who appeared to be older took the lead and set down his backpack before pitching a tent. "Okay." Nodding, the others also began to unpack and help set up camp. Notably, several of them walked towards nearby trees and seemed to install something, fiddling with it for a while. Positioning devices and monitors. Accompanied by a solemn voice, a red figure emerged from somewhere. Looking at these 10 men, a glint of coldness flickered in her eyes. As the most talented girl in the human experiment laboratory, Qing Er could naturally recognize these experimental results from the defense laboratory. However, these positioning devices and monitors were no longer as simple as before. Nowadays, these devices were primarily used to assist the Spiritual Energy Monitoring Bureau in surveillance. In other words, when these devices were installed at a certain location and combined with spiritual energy monitoring satellites, they could monitor a specific area even more precisely, even synchronizing visual images. Of course, the cost of such positioning devices and monitors was high. Until now, they had only been deployed in places with strange phenomena like misty mountains. For example, the northern region where freezing temperatures persisted day and night, and ordinary people would turn into ice sculptures within a few hours of entering. Another example was the poisonous forest, a forest that began exuding poisonous mist at an unknown time, and as time passed the poison mist grew more terrifying. It had now been upgraded to a red zone. Furthermore, its horrifying poison mist could corrode anything. So, Misty Mountains has attracted the attention of some people? Qing Er sighed, feeling a little helpless. Well, it's understandable, as a seemingly harmless place like Misty Mountains, which is actually shrouded in mystery, is what makes people fearful. As she finished speaking, Qing Er transformed into a red mist and decided to leave. As a specter, she could not be detected by ordinary people. Now that Qing Er had reached the Tier 0 level 9, it was easy for her to avoid detection of Tier 0 level 7 humans. If they were of the same level, it would have been challenging. However, these individuals were nothing but insignificant ants that could be easily wiped away with a wave of her hand. Not long after, in the heart of North Canyon. Listening to Qing Er's account, the corner of Yu Ziyu's lips curled into a cold smile. It seems that China's influence is strong. They've begun attempting to control places like mine. Not exactly controlling, just for more accurate monitoring. Saying so, Qing Er added with a cold smile, but I don't like the idea of living under their surveillance. Indeed. Nodding, Yu Ziyu glanced at the sky and declared, as if making a promise, when I'm powerful enough, I'll definitely shoot down those spiritual energy satellites. Hearing Yu Ziyu's near-crazy declaration, Qing Er could not help but chuckle. Master, those spiritual energy satellites are in space. Your statement is no different from the ancient legend of Ho-E shooting the sun. There is no difference per se, and... Saying so, Yu Ziyu lowered his voice slightly and continued, his tone carrying a hint of certainty, it should be possible soon enough. Qing Er did not say anything. She just looked at Yu Ziyu's current expression, and could not help but be shocked. What does Master mean? Could it be true? With a look of incredulity, Qing Er gazed at Yu Ziyu with a hint of complexity. But before she could be further shocked, a voice suddenly interrupted her. Qing Er, what do you think we should do with these people? What to do with them? After hesitating for a moment, Qing Er frankly replied, Master, according to your rules, humans are allowed to enter within 10 kilometers of the outer perimeter of Misty Mountains. But inside the inner ring, anyone who dares to set without your permission can only die. As for the center area of North Canyon, even dead people don't have the qualifications to enter. I didn't expect you to remember that. Yu Ziyu chuckled. He had not expected that Qing Er would remember his casual remark. However, even though it was a casual comment, it roughly reflected Yu Ziyu's intentions. Outer, inner, and center. As the distance shortened, Yu Ziyu's risk of exposure would only increase. Regarding some matters, even if he did not want to do them, he had no choice. To ensure their survival, he had no choice but to wield the butcher's knife when necessary. As these thoughts swirled in his mind, Yu Ziyu looked at the 10 individuals who had already stepped into the inner ring of Misty Mountains, a glint of coldness flickering in his eyes. Right at this moment, Yu Ziyu's gaze suddenly shifted to a young man not far away. At this moment, the burly young man was lying on the ground, comforting White Tiger, occasionally teaching White Tiger some words. It's all right, brother. Among us humans, the later one starts speaking, the smarter they become. And let me tell you, don't be fooled by Fifth Brother's quick telepathy. That's because his brain has the highest proportion of his body weight among all living creatures. With each comforting word, Qing Gang also wrote a few words on the ground. You see, this is ant, which is Fifth Brother's species. This species possesses tremendous strength. As he spoke, Qing Gang could not help but sigh in his heart. Relatively speaking, the ants did indeed possess great strength, but seeing something as outrageous as this was the first time even for him. To be honest, even though Qing Gang had already reached Tier 0 level 8, he still did not have the confidence to deal with Tier 0 level 5 golden ant. Oh my, a prodigy like me has actually fallen to being challenged by someone of a lower rank, and it's even a 3-level difference. As he complained in his heart, Qin Gang lost his temper. I should just serve the divine tree well. Once the divine tree acknowledges me, I can truly soar to a new level. Qin Gang started giggling. His smiling appearance was a bit queer. However, just at this moment, a voice suddenly resounded in his mind. Come forth swiftly. Hearing this voice, Qin Gang suddenly trembled, and without a second thought, he ran toward the divine tree with a look of ecstasy. Lord Divine Tree, I'm here. Evolution begins with a big tree, Chapter 111, My Lord's Sword. As the night grew deeper, Qin Gang arrived near the divine tree with excitement brimming within him. Being summoned by the divine tree for the first time, Qin Gang could not contain his excitement. Am I going to be recognized by Lord Divine Tree? Yes, it should be. With his heart filled with excitement, Qin Gang hopped his way to Wuxia, and stood about 10 meters away. Then he bowed respectfully and greeted, Greetings, Lord Divine Tree. And Wuxia lightly nodded, gazing at the bearded man whose face was already riddled with vicissitudes of life. Then he asked, How long have you been here? How long? Qin Gang was momentarily stunned, unable to react for a while. But then he thought for a moment and replied, Lord Divine Tree, I've been here for 22 days. 22 days, Wuxia murmured while looking at the night sky. Despite the thick fog concealing the sky, he could still see the bright and radiant moon. Since the resurgence of spiritual energy, the night sky seemed much cleaner, adorned with numerous stars and a brilliant moon. At this moment, as if sensing the peculiar atmosphere, Qin Gang mustered up his courage and inquired cautiously, Lord Divine Tree, did you summon me here for something? To Qin Gang dismay, his inquiry was met with dead silence. Yes, dead silence. Qin Gang felt very suffocating until at some point, a voice finally echoed in his mind, Do you know how to kill? The voice was calm, devoid of any emotional fluctuations, nonchalant as if asking casually. Kill? Startled, Qin Gang slightly froze up. But the next moment, as if he thought of something, his face turned slightly pale. Unexpectedly, he nodded vigorously. I haven't killed anyone, but if that's what Lord Divine Tree desires, I'll. While Qin Gang's replied, the burly young man's clenched fist to the point that his veins were bulging did not go unnoticed by Wuxia. Fear or? Looking at Qin Gang with a somewhat ambiguous expression, Wuxia gave the final comment, then go and kill, show me how it's done. As soon as he finished speaking, clouds and mist surged, forming an arrow-like symbol in the sky. It was the so-called Celestial's guidance, nothing more than that. Yes, Lord Divine Tree. With a thud, Qin Gang kneeled on the ground. He did not ask any questions. He did not know whom to kill, nor did he know if he could succeed in killing them. However, since it was Lord Divine Tree's request, he would do it. Since he had already decided to give up everything, how could he hesitate in such a test? The corner of his lips rose into a cold smile before he looked at the arrow of mist in the sky. Tap, tap, tap. Faster and faster he walked, until he turned into a speeding arrow heading straight in the direction indicated by the arrow. Not long after Qin Gang's departure, a wisp of red smoke silently followed in the direction of the arrow. It was extremely late at night. In misty mountains the night was exceptionally eerie. The dense mist had engulfed everything, leaving no trace of stars. And the trees in the forest seemed to transform into ferocious monsters, waiting to prey on unsuspecting victims. But that was not the most terrifying part. The most terrifying aspect was the howls of the wind, which sounded like a wild beast roaring at the moon, sending shivers down one's spine. Damn this cursed place. A rugged man who was on guard outside a few tents complained indignantly, and then habitually reached for his waist with his right hand. But after a moment he seemed to recall something and his right hand paused. During the mission there was no cigarette for him to smoke. And this time it was a very important target-specific mission. Thinking of this, he could not help but glance back at the several tents behind him. Inside those tents were important figures, brilliant prodigies from the No. 3 Spiritual Energy Research Institute. Due to the assignment, the rugged man was fortunate enough to be in a team with them. But at the end of the day there was a gap between him and them. He had served in the military for over a decade, but as an ordinary person he could only look up to these 4 or 5 young kids. Yet there was nothing he could do. As geniuses from the No. 3 Spiritual Energy Research Institute, they all enjoyed the resources of the nation, and their talents were even more outstanding. Now most of them were already in Tier 0. These powerful individuals, whom one could even call human-shaped walking cannons, were not to be underestimated. The rugged man dared not be disrespectful. So, he willingly came out to keep watch with his brothers every night. It was their nightly duty. Be that as it may, he was fine with it. With these geniuses leading the way, their logistics team was relatively safe. With a smile on his face, the rugged man picked up a twig and held it in his mouth. However, at this moment, neither the rugged man nor the other guards noticed that far away, concealed within the dense mist, a burly figure was quietly approaching. Soldiers? As he looked at the fully armed figures not far away, Qin Gang's expression could not help but change slightly. Soldiers, or rather, the military which represented the power of the nation, was definitely not something an ordinary person could provoke. They were the nation's sharpest weapons. However, as if Qin Gang had thought of something, he clenched his tightly all of a sudden. He seemed to have no other choice. The divine tree guided him here, and the purpose was self-evident. Rather than saying it was about killing someone, it was more like a test. If I succeed, I might become the confidant of Lord Divine Tree. But if I fail, death would probably be inevitable. A bitter smile appeared on his lips as Qin Gang's nails involuntarily pierced into his flesh. He did not want to die, he really did not want to die. In this era of transcendence, there were still too many things he wanted to do. So, since he did not want to die, then it had to be someone else. Clenching his teeth, Qin Gang looked toward the nearby tent as a cold gleam flashed in his eyes. You shouldn't have come. Sighing in his heart once again, Qin Gang suddenly kicked the ground, boom. With a thunderous noise, he rushed toward the camp like a tank. Since he had made up his mind, there was no need to hesitate. As for preparation, it was unnecessary. As a Tier 0 Level 8 existence, facing a group of mere Tier 0 Level 6 fellows, there was no need to prepare. That would be downplaying the difference in levels. Of course, at this moment, Qin Gang could not help but think of fifth brother, the Golden Ant. If he was facing the Golden Ant, he might have felt a bit nervous. However, he stood on the opposing side of the human race. And as an enhancement-type superhuman, he undoubtedly had the edge. More importantly, Qin Gang had already noticed that there was something unusual about the surrounding mist. The mist started slowly spinning, forming a vortex enveloping the tents as well as Qin Gang within itself. Lord Divine Tree. Qin Gang muttered as he strengthened his resolve. I'm willing to be my Lord's sword, only seeking to be sharpened further. Evolution begins with a big tree, Chapter 112, Slaughter. Humanoid beast. Boom. A sudden loud noise erupted in the dark night. No. Immediately after, a tragic scream echoed through the night. There was no time to react, neither was there any room to react. As the group rushed out of the tents, they discovered that a middle-aged man on night watch had his neck twisted and lay lifelessly on the ground. Who are you? Gnashing their teeth, the other fully armed team members stared intently at the burly figure concealed in the thick fog. With arms as thick as thighs, clad in animal skins and unkempt hair, he looked like a wild man. However, he might be the most terrifying wild man. Because at this moment, everyone felt a little bit cold as a bone-chilling chill gradually rose in their hearts. As if sensing something, a young man shouted, "Be careful." The moment he warned, his legs suddenly doubled in size, followed by a loud boom, as he launched a whip kick toward the burly figure. But right at that very moment, the burly figure vanished within the mist. The next moment, everyone saw two figures emerge from the fog, both delivering kicks simultaneously. Bang. Accompanied by a thunderous impact, the young man's face changed drastically. However, before he could respond, the burly figure coldly snorted, and his spiritual energy surged. With a thunderous boom, the young was sent flying like a kit with a broken string, breaking several large trees in the process. Cough, cough. The young man's continuous coughing brought up blood from his internal injuries. Nevertheless, the young man struggled to get up and tried to warn everyone, "Be careful, it's high-level superhuman." High-level superhuman? A murmur spread through the air, freezing everyone in their tracks. A high level was not a term to be taken lightly. It meant the pinnacle of humans, someone whom even a fully armed company, a company consisting of 3 platoons, 90 to 120 people, could hardly rival. Of course, this company would consist entirely of ordinary people. Exhaling a deep breath, the remaining figure exchanged glances, their eyes filled with determination. Then a voice, as if amplified by a loudspeaker, resounded through the night sky. Attack. Just at the drop of the word. Asterisk swoosh swoosh swoosh. 4 figures rushed forward. Behind them, the remaining 4 people picked up their weapons nearby without hesitation. Asterisk bang bang bang, accompanied by continuous bursts of gunfire, the former 4 disappeared into the fog. There was no denying that they were true human elites. Despite 4 of them charging into the fog to engage with Qin Gang, there was no hesitation on their faces. Furthermore, the rapid gunfire cleverly blocked most of Qin Gang's retreat. Crack. Tightening his fist, Qin Gang looked at the 4 figures charging toward him, no longer intending to hold back. Since they want to kill me, let's give them a good fight. Whispering in his heart, Qin Gang no longer hesitated. Talent, full body hardening, a cold voice reverberated through the air. At the same time, Qin Gang's body trembled violently. Immediately after, much to the soldier's disbelief, his body actually doubled in size. What was even more shocking was that his skin seemed to have turned a few points darker, no longer as pale as before, but had a faint tint of blood, as if his muscles were stretched to the limit. But as they looked at this figure with a rock-like hardness, a sense of unease rose in their hearts. And in a moment, Qin Gang proved their instincts right. Roar, as if blood surged into his throat, Qin Gang let out a roar that sounded like a mutant beast. He had already transformed into a humanoid beast, pouncing forward. Swift. He was too swift for them to react. One soldier saw a blur before a burly figure had already appeared in front of him. I'm sorry. A hoarse whisper reached the soldier's ears before his gaze froze forever. Because at that moment, with a crisp crack, a headless corpse fell slowly into a pool of blood. Gulps swallowing their saliva, the remaining soldiers stared at the soldier whose neck was twisted off by a single blow, their faces turning pale. Be that as it may, they did not have any choice before them. Looking at the humanoid beast charging at them like a tank, all they could do was pick up their weapons and mount their final struggle. Bang bang bang. One after another, tightly clenched fists covered in calluses struck the superhumans with such force and speed that the sheer might of the punch exploded the air. In just a few breaths, figures were sent flying one after another. After finishing them off, Qin Gang kicked the ground without a moment of hesitation, and using the recoil, he once again charged toward the distant figures holding weapons. Go to hell. A soldier, carrying a rocket launcher, roared with a ferocious expression. Immediately after, with a thunderous boom, a armor-piercing rocket swished through the air, dragging a tail of flames. Too slow. Whispering to himself, Qin Gang promptly stopped. Then, using his left foot as a pivot, he swung 180 degrees and viciously kicked a big tree that would require several people to hug. Asterisk crack. Asterisk with a cracking sound, the entire tree cracked apart and flew toward the armor-piercing rocket. Armor-piercing rocket was indeed formidable. Asterisk boom. Star. It pierced through the tree in an instant. However, in the same moment it pierced through the tree, Qin Gang took advantage of that moment to shift to the other side. With a thunderous boom, a cloud of dust rose into the sky far away. But nearby, the nauseating smell of blood permeated the air. Accompanying it were screams of extreme pain and misery. After some indefinite amount of time, the dense fog lingering in the forest gradually disappeared, revealing a clearing. The pale moonlight slowly descended, casting a poignant reflection on the burly figure, adding a touch of desolation to the night. Qin Gang stood silently, staring blankly at the pool of blood and the aftermath of the battle. When he looked at his now blood-stained right hand, his gaze became a little dull and out of focus. However, at that moment, heavy panting in a corner broke the silence. Lifting his gaze, Qin Gang caught sight of the first superhuman he had fought with. The man was retreating slowly, his eyes filled with fear and despair. However, there was no escape. In the face of this demon, there was truly no escape. Moreover, the young man's left leg was also broken. A look of despair crossed the young superhuman as he gazed at the burly figure approaching him. He could not help but scream, "Let me go, please, I beg you, I beg you. Please spare me. My father is a wealthy businessman, he can give you a lot of money." Evolution begins with a big tree, Chapter 113, swear to follow. Until the end of the world. Tap, 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 with heavy footsteps, Qin Gang slowly approached the last young man. His gaze had regained its calm, but the icy expression on his face failed to hide his killing intent. He understood the principle of uprooting the weeds, and was willing to put it into action. Swoosh with lightning speed, his right hand swiftly grabbed the young man's neck. Then bit by bit, little by little, he tightened his grip. No, no, the young man struggled fiercely, but he couldn't budge the massive arm that felt like Mount Tai. All he could do was helplessly watch while his face turned red until he suffocated, or until his neck was twisted with a slight application of force. However, just as Qin Gang was about to squeeze tighter, a voice suddenly resounded in his mind, "Let him go." Qin Gang looked a little dumbfounded, but he did not hesitate. The next moment he loosened his right hand grip. Cough, cough. The young man broke into a fit of coughs as he collapsed on the ground, looking at the burly figure standing close by with fear in his eyes. Just then, a hoarse voice rang in the young man's ears, "Scarm." What? He thought he misheard. The young man's eyes widened in surprise. But the next moment, without a second thought, the young man endured the excruciating pain in his right leg and rushed into the dense fog, yelling, "Thank you, really thank you." His voice carried a sobbing tone, and the joy of a survivor of a disaster. Meanwhile, Qin Gang stood alone on the blood-soaked ground stretching before him, like an ancient sculpture. However, there was a complex look on his face as his gaze followed the young man's departing figure. Letting him go meant releasing a tiger back into the mountains. However, did he have a choice? It was an order from the Divine Tree. And when it came to the Divine Tree's commands, he would not question them, let alone dare to. Just then, the Divine Tree's voice echoed in his mind again with the help of the fog. "Do you know why I asked you to let him go?" After hesitating for a moment, Qin Gang nodded slightly, replying, "I know." "You know? Then tell me." Curiosity arose in Yu Ziyu as he gazed at Qin Gang's gaze, making him all the more intrigued. "This person has seen my face. If I'm not mistaken, once he returns he will quickly find information about me. After all, I was born and raised in that city." At this point, Qin Gang paused for a moment, a bitter smile appearing on his face. "By then I, Qin Gang, will be labeled as an extremely evil criminal, and I'll be hunted by the government. In other words, you'll truly be pushed to the opposing side of humanity, right?" Upon hearing Yu Ziyu's addition, Qin Gang nodded slightly. "Yes." However, after a moment he seemed to remember something and excitement appeared on his face. "But I don't regret it. People die for wealth and birds die for food. If doing this can win the recognition of the Divine Tree, I'm willing to do it." As the words fell, Qin Gang knelt down in a respectful manner in the direction of Yu Ziyu. Sighing, Yu Ziyu gazed at this determined young man and could not help but admire his decisiveness and ruthlessness. Although Qin Gang had to follow Yu Ziyu's orders to survive in Misty Mountains, his decisiveness in letting go was commendable. He was willing to be hunted by the entire China, all of humanity, in order to gain his approval. "Great, that's great." Praising him twice in a row, Yu Ziyu nodded in satisfaction. Then, his gaze focused on the young superhuman who had already reached the outskirts of Misty Mountains by now. "He runs pretty fast." A sneer escaped Yu Ziyu's lips as a tinge of coldness flickered in the depths of his eyes. The next moment, the mist surged violently. Before the heavily injured young man could react, he was already caught by a giant hand formed from the mist. "When it comes to my men, I'm quite protective." Laughing, Yu Ziyu exerted force. With a loud boom, a mist of blood in the night sky. Of course, Qin Gang was completely oblivious to what was transpiring in this corner. Though telling him directly would have won his gratitude, Yu Ziyu deemed it unnecessary. It was better to let him think that he had been completely pushed to the opposite side of humanity, and was now associated with Yu Ziyu. This was a petty tactic useful for manipulating subordinates. It was more advantageous to control him this way. Smiling, Yu Ziyu stated to Qin Er, who was following behind Qin Gang, "He'll be one of our own from now on." "Yes, master." With a soft chuckle, Qin Er looked at the young man not far away with a playful expression. "But to be honest, does this guy really want to? If he didn't follow master's order or manage to escape, he would have undoubtedly faced my thunderous strike. My hands would be stained with blood. But that is at the end of the day our last resort. After all, while master is powerful, controlling mist to kill a high-level superhuman several dozen kilometers away is a bit hard. So, I would have to act as master's proxy in such situations." Thankfully, everything turned out well. The only bit of problem that Qin Er found objectionable was that Qin Gang was a human. sighing, Qing Er disappeared into the night. She was a mere soul. She was not fond of coming in contact with people or even mutant beasts for that matter. It was worth mentioning that until now, Qing Gang was still unaware of Qing Er's existence. This hidden elder sister was a true enigmatic presence. By the time Qing Gang returned to the canyon, it was pretty late at night. Along the way, Qing Gang picked some wild fruits to alleviate his hunger, but he still appeared very much exhausted. Killing was not an enjoyable act, especially when he had taken the lives of 9 people. Moreover, the most important thing was that he had activated his ultimate move, full body hardening. This move almost cost him his life. Qing Gang exhaled a long, deep breath. Shaking his head, he decided not to dwell on it longer. Be that as it may, he was quite meticulous in scavenging valuable items from the corpses. Even with the strategic positioning device and monitoring equipment, he didn't leave anything behind and brought them back. According to him, since he had come this far, there was no room for hesitation. Furthermore, these supplies were meant to improve North Canyon. At this moment, as he arrived at the entrance of North Canyon, Qing Gang looked up at the divine tree hidden in the mist, his eyes flickering incessantly. From today, no, from the moment I killed those people, all I can do is follow Lord Divine Tree. I swore I'll follow Lord Divine Tree until the end of the world. With a firm resolve flashing in his eyes, Qing Gang stepped forward with even more determination, using more force than usual. Evolution begins with a big tree, Chapter 114, Flying Willow Leaf Knife. As Qing Gang entered the canyon, a green jade-like verdant branch cut through the air and slowly arrived in front of him. Lord Divine Tree. As he looked at the branch, a complex expression flashed in Qing Gang's eyes. Just then, crack. Accompanied by a crisp snapping sound, a drop of rich life essence overflowed from the broken tip of the branch. Take it and follow the old third to the secret crypts for cultivation. Secret crypts, also known as the Underground Plaza, was one of the forbidden areas where Qing Gang and the other 2 humans were not allowed to enter. Until now, they still had no idea what the secret crypts were like. However, every time the mutant beasts returned from there, their auras seemed to have improved significantly. More importantly, even their spiritual energy seemed to be purer. Can I really take it? Qing Gang gazed at the life essence he had been craving for all the while in a daze, but he did not immediately reach out for it. Instead, he asked with a whole lot of complex emotions surging in his heart. Of course you can, this is your reward. Saying so, Wuxia looked deeply at Qing Gang before reminding him, I believe in my judgment, so you won't disappoint me, will you? Crack. Tightening his fists, Qing Gang repeatedly nodded and assured, no, I won't, absolutely not. As these words fell, Qing Gang's gaze shifted toward where Wuxia's body was hidden in the thick fog, and excitedly stated, I believe that one day, Lord Divine Tree will cover the entire sky and the sun, and shoulder the whole world. And I, for my part, will follow you forever. In the midst of giving his promise, Qing Gang took the life essence. At this moment, he glanced at the small mountain-like white tiger who has emerged from the darkness of the night, and nodded before silently choosing to follow him. However, Qing Gang had failed to notice 2 complex gazes watching him from afar. Qing Gang he. As she watched Qing Gang slowly approach the forbidden area, Chen Qin seemed to have realized something. Lung Feng heaved a sigh but chose not to give any comment. However, if one paid attention, they would notice that Lung Feng's gaze linger on the blood-stained beast skin Qing Gang wore. In the end you chose this path, huh? Feeling a complexity that could not be expressed, Lung Feng shook his head helplessly and chose to walk deeper into the night. That night, Wuxia cast a long and deep gaze in the direction of the battlefield. At the speed of the humans, it would take at least a day or 2 to notice the disappearance of the reconnaissance team. And in these 2 days, all Wuxia had to do was finish deploying the mist beasts, creating an atmosphere of dense fog and beasts lurking within it, making it seem like a dangerous place. As for anything more, it was unnecessary. One should eat their meal 1 bite at a time and drink water 1 sip at a time. Given the current situation, Misty Mountains could not be directly classified as a forbidden zone. After all, how could Wuxia prepare the rumors without the humans' repeated explorations? At the end of the day, Misty Mountains were far from being as terrifying as forbidden zones, and Wuxia could only slowly push in that direction. Perhaps one day when the humans finally react, Wuxia alone would be enough to classify it a forbidden zone. Wuxia chuckled as his anticipations for the future increased a bit. At that moment he thought of something and his gaze shifted to the status screen. It was the same as before, but what was surprising was there was an extra ability. Moreover, it was a rare long-range ability called Flying Willow Leaf Blade. Perhaps it fulfilled Yu's recent thought, shooting down satellites in space? Driven by the instinct of life's evolution and guided by the system, a very good long-range ability was born. Flying Willow Leaf Blade. After nourishing the willow leaf with your spiritual energy, continuously refining it, you can shoot the leaf like a blade. The purer the refinement, the more smoothly the spiritual energy can flow through it, and the farther the range and greater the power of the Flying Willow Leaf Blade. How should I put it? This ability seems quite interesting. Refine, huh? Whispering to himself, Yu could not help but think of a famous phrase from his past life, "Little flying dagger never misses its target." He wondered if his willow leaves, after being refined, would possess such precise divine might. With curiosity piqued, Yu decided to give it a try, taking advantage of the leisure of the night. Casually plucking a willow leaf, Yu began to mobilize his majestic spiritual energy. However, something unexpected happened. With a crack, the willow leaf blew into pieces due to the overwhelming spiritual energy. It's not that simple after all. Murmuring in his heart, Yu was even more eager to explore this ability. The more intricate the ability was, the more worthy it was. Furthermore, Yu also hoped to shoot down satellites with a willow leaf. If it were that easy, it would lose its charm. Late at night. It was so dark that it felt as if a black curtain had been hung, making it impossible to see one's hand in front of their face. However, at that moment, a streak of light flashed as a distant big tree split in half, revealing a mirror-smooth cut surface. At this moment, if one took a closer look, they would notice a single willow leaf slightly trembling deep in a cliff behind the tree. This willow leaf was very thin, its edges sharp and gleaming like a blade. Yet, the entire leaf was quite transparent, seeming almost translucent with a hint of shining brilliance. It can penetrate through a tree 10 kilometers away, and still pierce 9 inches deep into the rock. Using the expanded perception from the fog, Yu precisely grasped the initial performance of the Flying Willow Leaf Blade. Clicking his tongue, Yu did not know whether he should be happy or disappointed. Happy, naturally, because the power of the Flying Willow Leaf Blade was still quite amazing. It could penetrate the rock wall 9 inches deep from 10 kilometers away. It was enough to tear through human steel plates. However, disappointing, naturally, because of the distance of the Flying Willow Leaf Blade. 10 kilometers was neither that long but nor too short either. It was long because the branches, even with the help of his innate talent, could only extend up to 100 meters. And it was short because his roots buried deep within the earth have already stretched out for more than 10 kilometers. Yu could display 10 or even 100 times the power using his roots within the range of the Flying Willow Leaf Blade. In other words, the long-range ability seemed a bit misleading. After all, could Yu's attack range, which he could reach with a single stretch of his hand, really be called long-range? Feeling slightly puzzled, Yu felt a bit helpless. It could be said that with the help of the Spirit Stone Mine and the primary roots dragonization ability, continuously delving into the earth and using everything as nutrients, Yu's tree roots had grown far beyond the constraints of his level. Even so, Yu's gaze still slightly flickered when he looked at the ability, the Flying Willow Leaf Blade. He had not forgotten that this ability was still at level 1, and he had also not forgotten that it required refinement. Furthermore, it was likely to be a long-term refinement process. It was somewhat similar to the legendary sword nurturing technique, one that was never revealed, but once it was revealed it would simply shake the world. Little flying dagger never misses its target. https://en. Wikipedia. org/wiki/shally_fadao. Evolution begins with a big tree, Chapter 115, one-leaf flying blade, the most powerful attack. System: how many evolution points do I need to upgrade the ability, Flying Willow Leaf Blade? Playing around with the Flying Willow Leaf Blade for a while, Yu asked with keen interest. For him, this ability was indeed very interesting. In addition, he was also looking forward to seeing what kind of brilliance this Flying Willow Leaf Blade would unleash after long-term nurturing. However, all of this was on the premise of upgrading it to a level that matched Yu's strength. As for level 3, Yu gave up on it. After all, it was a nurturing method. If it was upgraded to level 3, Yu's spiritual energy might not be sufficient to nurture it. Rather, he might endanger himself by depleting his own spiritual energy. After all, this kind of offensive ability was not comparable to the supportive ability, mastery of mist. Supportive abilities usually emphasized endurance and stability, whereas offensive abilities required explosive power. You could already imagine that if upgraded the flying willow leaf blade to level 3, the power might indeed increase, but he would probably exhaust hundreds of thousands of spiritual energy in that instant. Swoosh. He would witness the shocking sight of sky tearing apart, but Uzu would not be able to muster any strength. And this, precisely, was something Uzu could not tolerate. While he might have the support of various mutant beasts and had Qing air to rely on, but the thought of losing his own strength made Uzu a little despondent. For someone like him, it was unacceptable to lose his strength. More importantly, after losing his power he still could not move. Just the thought of it made Uzu almost spew a mouthful of blood. In the end, he could not upgrade the flying willow leaf blade to level 3 quickly. After all, he could not afford the backlash it might bring. Just then, with a crisp ring, a cold electronic systems prompt rang in Uzu's ears. Ding, you've spent 2,000 evolution points to upgrade the ability flying willow leaf blade to level 2. With this notification, Uzu felt his countless leaves tremble slightly, as if a power was circulating through them. Simultaneously, he felt a sudden tightness in his heart. The sound of tearing silk resonated as a cold gleam bloomed in his heart. Upon closer look, Uzu discovered that it was a willow leaf. However, compared to ordinary willow leaves, it was too sharp like a blade. Just looking at it gave a sensation of being pierced. Sharp aura? Uzu murmured in his mind, realizing the terrifying aspect of this willow leaf. Yes, it was a sharp aura. An indescribable sharp aura, as if it could tear through everything. What was even more frightening was that when this willow leaf swayed along the wind, it cut through the air, and also brought forth a storm of wind blades. Though it was only a palm's length, it stirred up a terrifying storm. Uzu believed that if this willow leaf were to fall, it would definitely be more than just penetrating a big tree and delving deep into the rocks. Just by its momentum alone, it could flatten a mountain range. Not to mention that the sharp aura of this willow leaf was extremely fierce, inducing a chilling feeling that reaches the depths of the soul. After a while, exhaling a long deep breath, Uzu finally calmed down his inner restlessness. He now understood the truly terrifying aspect of the willow leaf. Compared to level 1, the level 2 flying willow leaf blade had a touch of divine charm. It was hard to describe or explain, but it gave a feeling of having a sharp aura that could tear apart one's soul. The image of the flying willow leaf blade that had just appeared in Uzu's mind was a blend of his understanding, which quickly helped him master the level 2 flying willow leaf blade. If my understanding is correct, I should be able to cultivate 2 flying willow leaf blades at once now, and the power of each could be increased through continuous refinement. Saying so, Uzu plucked the 2 best-looking willow leaves, swoosh swoosh. Under Uzu's psychic control, the 2 leaves curved through the air and approached him like they were alive. In an instant, with a tearing sound, they pierced into Uzu's thick trunk. But surprisingly, Uzu did not feel pain. Instead, he experienced a comfortable feeling of harmony, like a child returning to the mother's embrace. No, it's an illusion. How could I possibly have a child? Uzu could not help but complain, feeling a bit helpless. If someone could see inside Uzu's body at this moment, they would definitely witness a vast sea of spiritual energy like a starry sky, and 2 willow leaves rocking back and forth by the waves of spiritual energy like tiny boats. And with each pulsation, the leaves became slightly more transparent. Nurturing and tempering them was a long and tedious process. Be that as it may, Uzu believed that these 2 flying willow leaf blades would not disappoint him. In the future they will be a force to be reckoned with. Thinking this, a touch of fierceness flickered in Uzu's eyes. Faintly, wherever his gaze passed, a nearly imperceptible mark, extending several inches deep, was left behind. Even I seemed to be affected by the sharp aura of the leaf blades. Uzu smiled, feeling somewhat astonished by the power of flying willow leaf blade. Such sharp aura could not be ignored. Once it made its entrance, it would definitely end up drawing blood. One noteworthy aspect was that if Uzu wanted, he could convert his thousands of leaves on his branches into an arrow storm, raining them in an instant. However, in this scenario he would lack the added power from nurturing them with his spiritual energy. In other words, the storm of willow leaves might seem grand and majestic, but they lacked the fleeting sharpness and domineering nature of the flying willow leaf blade, albeit less in number, but swift and sharp nonetheless. Flying willow leaf blade can be used as a trump card. Contemplating this, Yuziyu began drawing his plans. As for the idea he had just thought of raining down thousands of willow leaves like a storm, covering the sky, it could be used as a form of deterrence. After all, with his innate talent, super regeneration, Yuziyu was not concerned about momentary baldness. But according to Yuziyu's estimate, raining down the leaves like a storm would have a range of only 10 to 20 meters. As for the flying willow leaf blade. As if realizing something, Yuziyu's lips curled into a slight smile. Everything shrouded in the mist was within the range of a flying leaf blade. What was even more terrifying was that with Yuziyu's continuous nurturing and tempering, the range and power of a leaf blade would increase further, until one day, it reached the critical point of reaching the next level. In other words, if all went well, the two leaf blades nurtured by Yuziyu could very well, after a long period of refinement and tempering, reach the peak of level 2, becoming the strongest attack method among catastrophe class beings. By then, the legendary phrase, "one leaf sealing the throat, even the gods and ghosts tremble in fear," might not just be legend. Evolution begins with a big tree, Chapter 116, The Ferocity of Sarcosuchus. Yuziyu smiled, satisfied with his newfound ability flying willow leaf blade. Although the name did not sound that grand and majestic, its power and potential were undeniable. However, at that moment, Yuziyu was oblivious to events happening in a distant valley near the misty mountains, Gruer. Amidst an inexplicable roar, a colossal crocodile, over 20 meters long, was crawling toward the valley with its short and stubby legs. This was the very same Sarcosuchus, the fourth beast under Yuziyu's command, also known as Old Fourth, a merciless yet taciturn creature. At this moment, he had caught the scent of a spirit flower through his superb sense of smell. A spirit flower, and not just any ordinary one. As if realizing something, a tinge of excitement flickered in the cold yellow vertical pupils of the Sarcosuchus. Boom, 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 accompanied by the strides of his short and stubby legs, the entire valley slightly quaked. Faintly, a ferocious aura was also surging continuously. However, just as the Sarcosuchus approached the valley domineeringly, ripples appeared in a dark pool in the valley. The ripples spread rapidly, growing larger and larger, as if an ancient behemoth was about to emerge. In an instant, with a loud splash, water splashed everywhere, and a large white snake as thick as a water bucket raised its massive snake head from the splashing water. It was a terrifying giant snake. A chilling aura pervaded the air, making all the other beasts whimper in fear. Even the birds took flight as if they were afraid. Yet, none of the birds or even insects dared to move their gazes away from the back of the white snake. Surprisingly, behind the white-scaled snake happened to be a radiant flower bud of ice blue color, and with a touch of crystalline texture, Gruer. An inexplicable roar echoed across the ravine once again. Slowly shifting its gaze, the white snake looked toward the entrance of the valley, where stood an over 20-meter-long fearsome crocodile. At the sight of it, even a hint of deep fear flashed in the cold pupils of the snake. As a matter of fact, she did not want to come out. However, the fearsome and ancient aura like that of a prehistoric monster deeply stimulated her nerves. Terrifying, it was really terrifying. It was absolutely incomparable to those mutant beasts that she regarded as prey. Moreover, what was even more frightening was that this visitor seemed to have set its eyes on the treasure she was guarding. Hiss, hiss. The giant snake hissed and released white mist through her thick nostrils, freezing the very air itself, and forming ice crystals that were visible to naked eyes. Unfortunately, in the face of this almost provocative act, the corners of the Sarcosuchus' mouth rose into a merciless look unique to it. There was no need for words. Among the wild beasts there was only the law of the jungles. This is not Lord Divine Tree's domain. Coldly smiling in his heart, the Sarcosuchus pounced on the half-submerged giant white snake in the deep pool without a moment of hesitation. Bang, bang, bang. The Sarcosuchus' speed was simply astonishing. His short and stubby legs acted like engines, propelling it at a speed too fast for ordinary people to capture it. His fleshy physique that seemed like a condensed mass of muscles not only granted him unimaginable strength, but also an explosive power that could be unleashed in the blink of an eye, capable of sending shivers down anyone's spine. Gruer. With another inexplicable roar, and the Sarcosuchus left yellow afterimages as he rushed straight toward the deep pool. His 2-meter-long massive jaws happened to be wide open already, revealing sharp, interlocking teeth that sparkled with a chilling cold gleam in the dim surroundings. Happened to miss? The Sarcosuchus looked at the white snake that had just evaded his attack as a sneer flashed in the depths of his smile. Does she really think she can escape? Human-like playful expression appeared on his face before a several-meter-long dark yellow shadow streaked through the air. Upon a closer look, it turned out to be the Sarcosuchus' long tail. It was uncertain about other crocodiles, but as far as he was concerned, his tail was his strongest weapon in his arsenal. With a thunderous boom followed by a painful hiss, the entire white snake was sent flying. Her palm-sized scales shattered in an instant as dark red blood scattered through the air. The Sarcosuchus' tail was too fast, as swift as lightning. What was even more ridiculous was that he used his enormous jaws as a feint, and used his giant tail to attack. However, it also made sense as he was a mutant beast from North Canyon. In terms of intelligence, he was already on a completely different level from most mutant beasts. Although the Sarcosuchus still relied on instinct to fight, his occasional tricks allowed him to defeat enemies more swiftly. And no one taught him either, such skills manifested on its own. After all, none of the Sarcosuchus' companions were easygoing characters. At this moment, the giant snake hit by the tail of Sarcosuchus did not give up either. Grew with an inexplicable roar mixed with excitement, the Sarcosuchus charged straight toward the giant white snake, which had crashed into the cliff. Hiss, hiss. The dozen or so meter giant snake hissed in pain again and again, unable to withstand the onslaught of this over 20-meter-long behemoth. The powerful spiritual energy fluctuations of this giant creature had already reached the peak of level 9. In contrast, the giant snake was only at the early stages of level 8. Blood and pieces of flesh flew into the air, while her white scales were wantonly ripped off. For a moment, the entire valley resounded with the most mournful hisses. However, it was only the beginning. As a prehistoric-type mutant beast, the Sarcosuchus fought in the most primitive style, and consequently, in the most brutal way. His gleaming sharp claws measuring 20 to 30 centimeters, tore away a large chunk of flesh with a vicious swipe. However, before the giant white snake could utter another hiss, the Sarcosuchus' massive 2-meter-long jaws had already clamped down fiercely on the white snake's thick body, squish accompanied by the crisp sound of Sarcosuchus' teeth piercing through the snake's flesh. His hundreds of interlocking teeth tore through the giant snake's defenses. Hiss, hiss. Like the last struggle of a cornered beast, the white snake turned her head suddenly, but before she could open her massive jaws to bite the Sarcosuchus, a short, stout claw was raised high, its sharp nails gleaming with a cold and sharp aura. Squish, another crisp piercing sound rang out as the sharp claw pierced through the snake's head along the pupils. Then he pulled his claw out of the snake's head, drip, drip. Crimson blood dripped into the deep pool from the sharp claw. At this moment, the Sarcosuchus slowly raised his gaze and looked at the flying bird still hovering uncertainty in the sky. An inexplicable roar suddenly erupted from his mouth, as if proclaiming the rise of a new king. At the same time, a ferocious aura, far surpassing the giant white snake several times or even dozens of times, spread in all directions. Asterisk screech. Star. Asterisk screech. Star. Amidst the painful chirps, several birds even nearly fell from the sky. Evolution begins with a big tree, Chapter 117, the arrival of the search team. The death of the giant white snake did not cause much emotional fluctuations in Sarcosuchus. He had already hunted and killed many creatures like this as he swam along the enormous river. However, compared to others, this giant white snake did possess some skills as she managed to injure Sarcosuchus. Glancing at the large frosty patch on his back, a cold glint flashed in Sarcosuchus' eyes. That was the result of the giant white snake's desperate counterattack, where it spewed out a freezing chill. It was a bone-piercing cold, completely freezing Sarcosuchus' flesh. If Sarcosuchus had not killed her in time, the chill would have continued spreading through his body, eventually turning him into a block of ice. A rare ice elemental talent, huh? Sarcosuchus murmured to himself in his heart. He was not unfamiliar with the elemental talents mentioned by the divine tree. Be that as it may, there was no denying it that the elemental talents were powerful, as evidenced by this cold freezing energy. With a sneer on his face, Sarcosuchus slowly turned his head and then opened his massive jaws before biting off the frozen part of his flesh and swallowing it. A moment later, looking at the bloody and a bit frozen wound, Sarcosuchus' eyes narrowed slightly. Immediately after, under his calm gaze, his flesh and blood began to squirm. At the same time, his wounds slowly began to close up. In just a short while, apart from some tender, fresh flesh and faint yet discernible scars, his entire body was restored to his original state. Super regeneration. Prolonged battles have bestowed him with excellent recovery, allowing him to quickly heal wounds and maintain his combat power. This was Sarcosuchus' newfound regenerative ability that he had awakened recently. And with this ability combined with his already terrifying physique, he could thrive in the dangerous environment of the Great River, like a fish in water, handling strong enemies with ease. Shortly after taking a look at the cold corpse in the dyed red pool, Sarcosuchus slowly raised his head and looked toward the nearby ice-blue flower that was rooted on a huge boulder above the deep pool. It was an ice-attribute spirit treasure that had not fully matured, but was already 70 to 80% done. If the giant white snake was alive, she would have naturally waited for the ice-blue flower to fully mature to completely break through to the next level. However, Sarcosuchus was different. As a mutant beast that did not require elements, it sought only the abundant spiritual energy contained in the ice-blue flower. More importantly, if he waited for the ice-blue flower to mature and fully bloom, its scent would definitely attract not just a few small cats but many others. While Sarcosuchus was confident in his strength, he still remembered the divine tree's warning, never fight against many at once. With these thoughts swirling in his mind, Sarcosuchus did not want to wait for the ice-blue flower to mature fully. Slowly opening his mouth, he swallowed the ice-blue flower in one gulp. Immediately after, Sarcosuchus' colossal body sank into the deep pool. And along with him, the massive body of the white snake also sank. In the blink of an eye, several days had passed. During this time, Misty Mountains remained as enigmatic as ever. Yet, vaguely, Wuxia sensed that there seemed to be more humans arriving on the outskirts of Misty Mountains. The humans must have noticed the disappearance of the reconnaissance team. Qing nodded in agreement, but she too looked puzzled by this as she added, "They should have. However, their efficiency is really not what it should have. Didn't you say there had been unusual movements along the coast recently?" Speaking of this, the corner of Wuxia's lips rose into a playful smile as he added, "I guess they must have shifted their focus to the coastal area. In that case, it's acceptable." Qing smiled, taking it not that seriously. Then she raised her hand before. *screech. Star. A soft cry filled the valley as a peregrine falcon descended from the sky, and landed on Qing finger, folding his wings. Fal too said he spotted several human search teams heading toward Misty Mountains. Wuxia clucked his tongue and could not help but laugh, saying, "Qing is quite impressive. He actually taught these falcons to identify human teams." Indeed. Qing nodded. She too did not expect that Qing would actually teach the falcons, white tiger and other mutant beasts such practical skills. However, the way he explained sounded quite simple. According to him, all they needed to do was observe whether the vehicles they came in had satellite receivers or not, and then look at the individual's attire to identify which team they belonged to. While this may seem simple for Qing and Wuxia, it was definitely not an easy task. After all, the falcons had limited knowledge. Qing needed to expand their worldview based on their limited cognition. The difficulty could be said to be quite a feat. "Master, if these search teams really enter Misty Mountains to search for the dead members of the reconnaissance team, what should we do?" After thinking for a moment, Qing asked the question weighing on her mind. "It's the same as always, we won't interfere with the ones on the outskirts, but if they manage to go deeper." Saying so, Wuxia's eyes gleamed with a cold light. Now he did not mind letting humans see his capabilities. With such thoughts, Wuxia's gaze also turned to the dense fog shrouding the mountains. As his gaze became focused, boom, star. Suddenly the fog started swirling, slowly at first and eventually forming a huge vortex. Faint roars could be heard from this vortex that seemed to come straight from ancient times. Mist beasts, one of the centerpieces of Wuxia's efforts to create an artificial forbidden zone. It was also a terrifying life form that was about to contend with the humans. While keeping himself hidden, Wuxia did not mind using the mist beast to play with humans. Of course, this was because Wuxia had the confidence that he would not be exposed. His body could sink several hundred meters into the earth at any time. In addition, he had also created a base not smaller than North Canyon within the depths of the earth, enough for him to hide there for a long time. While this base was still in its infancy, Wuxia believed that under Qing's management, the base that was buried hundreds of meters underground would slowly take shape. It was worth mentioning that Qin Gang had actually graduated in civil engineering before the resurgence of spiritual energy. Despite his superficial knowledge and experience, designing residences for mutant beasts where they could live and hide in was not that difficult. After all, mutant beasts and him were different from humans. Their requirements for their residences were not high, they just need to be sufficiently sturdy, spacious, and have a place for cultivation. Evolution begins with a big tree, Chapter 118, Sarcosuchus Advancement. On a frigid night, when the crescent moon was hung slantwise in the sky, and stars were twinkling, a nameless valley suddenly started quaking. Rocks were jumping up and down, sliding off, and the ground was trembling. From afar, the entire valley looked as if it was about to be overturned. However, at that very moment, an inexplicable roar shook the sky as visible sound waves spread outward like ripples, screech, screech, screech. One mournful cry followed another as countless birds fell like raindrops. Unfortunately, the real terror had only started. Another inexplicable roar reverberated through the sky. The next moment, a funnel-shaped vortex of spiritual energy appeared in the sky above the valley. Boom, 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 with thunderous rumbles following one after another. The spiritual energy vortex whirling up in the clouds descended straight into the heart of the valley. Meanwhile, at the headquarters of China's Federal Spiritual Energy Monitoring Bureau. Ding, red alert, red alert. As a series of alarms started ringing, a monitoring personnel's expression changed as he shouted, "At 32 degrees north latitude, 103 degrees east longitude, there is a large surge in spiritual energy fluctuations, with a peak spiritual energy of 17,000. Shouting, the monitoring personnel shouted again in a louder and excited voice, "The peak spiritual energy is still increasing at a visible speed. It has already reached 24,000. We have confirmation that a Tier 0 Level 9 mutant beast is breaking through. It has just started, and the peak spiritual energy is already at 24,000. It should not be an ordinary mutant beast." A solemn voice came from outside the door. Looking toward the source, a hot and beautiful woman happened to be rushing over. Shi Hengyi, the deputy director of the Federal Spiritual Energy Monitoring Bureau and also the direct person in charge of the Inland Spiritual Energy Monitoring Bureau, exhaling a long deep breath, suppressing the excitement in her heart, Shi Hengyi looked at the screen with continuously blinking red dots and immediately asked, "Can you confirm what mutant beast it is?" "We can't. So far, this mutant beast has not revealed its form, but we can be certain that it is in a critical period of advancement. Shall we initiate the capture protocols?" Hearing the monitoring personnel's question, Shi Hengyi nodded slightly, giving her consent. Capture IWA, the primary measure taken by China against Tier 1 transcendent creatures. If such beasts got discovered, they must be captured immediately. If they could not be captured, they would be eliminated at all costs. However, after a moment of consideration, it seemed like she had thought of something. She reminded everyone, "Up until now, we have already discovered 32 mutant beasts advancing. There are many others that have not been found. Yet, among all these mutant beasts, we have only managed to capture less than 10. Do you understand what that means?" "We understand." After exchanging glances, many high-ranking personnel of the Spiritual Energy Monitoring Bureau showed a helpless expression. Despite their advanced and formidable technologies, when faced with these unfamiliar and mysterious transcendent creatures, they still fell short. These were the life forms that had already surpassed human understanding, and their methods were far beyond human imagination. In the past, who would have dared to imagine that mere sound waves could shatter fighter jets? In the past, who would have imagined that mere wings could stir up a storm? But now, the appearance of these transcendents has shattered their understanding. Number 26, Supersonic War Bat. Number 13, Fury Wind Eagle. Each of these mutant beasts mentioned was a treasure trove, and each one overturned their worldview little by little. More importantly, most of the advancing mutant beasts were deep within the mountains and forests. In there, besides the fighter jets that could arrive at moment's notice, the only other option was long-range missiles. In other words, if they could not be successfully captured, the only solution was carpet bombing, and it must be done before these transcendents had fully mastered their powers. That's great then. After looking at everyone, Shi Hengyi immediately ordered, "Send the coordinates to the Air Force, and grant them the authority to eliminate the threat." At this point, Shi Hengyi's voice turned cold as she added, I don't want to see this gifted mutant beast survive in the wild tomorrow. Yes. As everyone replied in unison, the Spiritual Energy Monitoring Bureau, this newly established department with real power, began to operate again. Meanwhile, in the heart of that nameless valley, the intense tremors intensified, and in just a moment, a large chunk of the cliff collapsed. Boom. With a thunderous boom, the deep pool within the valley was completely buried under the rubble. However, even amidst this terrifying spectacle, the terrifying spiritual energy fluctuations in the surroundings did not decrease, rather became further intense. The visible spiritual energy vortex had already descended from the sky. What was even more outrageous was that these spiritual energy vortexes even lifted huge rocks as they spun. From a distance they looked like a tornado, looking grim and apocalyptical. Just then, roar. An inexplicable roar, which seemed to carry a tinge of excitement, reverberated through the sky. Suddenly, within the spiritual energy vortex, a massive black shadow appeared. While the figure was indistinct, its terrifying shape and size made the onlookers' hearts tremble involuntarily. It was 40 to 50 meters long, about twice the size of the 20 meters or so long silver centipede. What's that? Within the depths of clouds, the pilot of a fighter jet that had just arrived could not help but exclaim shock and fear, gazing at the terrifying sight below. 40 to 50 meters long. It was as tall as a high-rise building, not to mention the fact that it was currently concealed in the tornado, making it look even more menacing. However, despite their fear, the jet fighters immediately transmitted the footage back to their command. But at this moment, what these aerial forces did not know was that the enormous figure hidden within the tornado had a cold, human-like smirk on its face. NS. An inexplicable voice reverberated through the air, as a pair of cold, lantern-sized yellow vertical pupils stared coldly at the sky. Sarcosuchus was not unfamiliar with humans. Qin Gang was also human, and so were Chen Qin and Lung Feng. Unfortunately, these guys can't be underestimated. The Sarcosuchus sneered in his heart, well aware of his external situation. However, as a prehistoric-type mutant beast, his body grew too big and too quickly, so fast that he found it a little uncomfortable. If nothing unexpected happened, his current size would make it a perfect living target for humans. Sighing, the Sarcosuchus finally understood why the divine tree had suppressed the speed of his body's growth. It was not that he did not want to grow, but he did not dare to. Of course, there was denying one thing. And that was that his massive size also bestowed upon him an unimaginable strength. Sarcosuchus, with its 20-plus meter-long tail, quietly coiled up a huge boulder. In an instant, with a thunderous roar, the boulder, propelled by the powerful swing of the Sarcosuchus tail, turned into a streak of light and shot straight into the sky. "Be careful!" An exclamation suddenly sounded in the pilot's earpiece, but before the pilot could react, a black shadow appeared in his field of vision. Subsequently, boom. Star. With a terrifying explosion, the fighter jet was instantly reduced to fragments. Also, even if the pilot had noticed the oncoming rock, the astonishing speed of the rock left him with no room to react. Evolution begins with a big tree, Chapter 119, Slaughter. Atavism type. Ferocious. Dominant. In just an instant before the humans could launch an attack, the monstrous creature concealed within the tornado had already launched its assault. It swung a massive boulder and blew up the fighter jet that was hundreds of meters in the sky. Witnessing this scene, not only the fighter jets hovering around the Sarcosuchus were dumbfounded, but even the Spiritual Monitoring Bureau receiving the footage from the Air Force was also stunned. Gulp. Swallowing his saliva, a young man's face turned pale, clearly shaken by the sight. "This is a mutant beast." Deputy Director Scher stepped forward, took a deep look at the colossal shadow in the tornado, before stating in a low voice, "This mutant beast is extremely ferocious, and judging by its size, it's beyond the capability of the fighter jets." Hearing the Deputy Director's conclusion, others also nodded in agreement. "Eliminate it." "Yes, let's eliminate it. Its corpse would be excellent research material." Looking at the vague figure revealed in the tornado, it does resemble a prehistoric crocodile. It's definitely worth researching. In the midst of the discussions, Deputy Director Scher made up her mind and gave her order in a cold voice: notify the Air Force's advanced team to proceed with the extermination forthwith. Also, deploy long-range missiles to ensure a quick kill. Yes. Everyone's united response marked the start of a series of actions taken against Sarcosuchus. Meanwhile, hidden in the depths of the tornado, Sarcosuchus looked at the debris of the fighter jet falling from the sky, revealing a human-like sinister grin. But right at that moment, as if receiving a command, dozens of bombs and missiles fell from beneath the fighter jets. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Immediately after, with the ignition of their tail flames, each bomb and missile tore through the air. They were China's most advanced fighter jets, and their mission was neither ground bombardment, nor was it an air-to-air combat. For this reason, they had abandoned bombs and machine guns, opting to carry only armor-piercing shells and medium and long-ranged missiles. And now, armor-piercing shells, medium and long-range missiles tore through the sky. However, would Sarcosuchus care about them? A glint of mysterious light flickered in the yellow vertical pupils as another boulder rose up. However, what was surprising was that this boulder was 3 meters tall. From afar, it looked like a small hill rising within the tornado. What is it trying to do? One of the sharp-witted pilots felt a bad premonition as he captured the trajectory of the boulder. In just a moment before his astonished eyes, the boulder was flung toward the sky. Immediately after, with a thunderous boom, a dozens of meter-long tail left a whip-like shadow, giving rise to a terrifying gale. Boom. Accompanied by a tremendous explosion, the entire boulder was shattered by the colossal tail. Then, as it shattered into countless pieces of rocks, the rocks swirled into the sky like a storm. My God! A cry of alarm resounded among the astonished pilots as their missiles collided head-on with the storm of rocks. Boom, boom, boom. One explosion followed another, creating a spectacle resembling fireworks in the sky. Even more frightening was that the powerful gusts of wind disrupted the balance of the fighter jets, causing them to sway one after another. What a clever creature! With a hint of dread, Deputy Director Scher's voice showed a sense of gravity. Encountering a mutant beast that could even repel missiles was even first for her. Take the Tier 2 Silver Centipede for example. While it was intelligent, it was ultimately overwhelmed by the freezing bombs specially made by humans for it, and its body froze instantly. Thus, it was successfully captured alive. But now, what she was witnessing was totally different. A recently advanced Tier 1 mutant beast seemed to be aware of the threat posed by missiles. And despite having terrifying defenses, it still did not want the missiles to get close. More importantly, the method it used to repel the missiles, although straightforward and brutal, was already the most effective approach. At this moment, Sarcosuchus was completely oblivious to Deputy Director Scher's thoughts. His first instinct was to run. Even with his immense power, he did not want to waste time fighting these humans. Deep down, he had a feeling that he should avoid contact with these upright walking creatures. This feeling was not only instinctive, but the result of the instructions from the Divine Tree. He remembered that the Divine Tree told him that humans were the best at ganging up on this planet. One human alone was not terrifying, they could be swatted like ants. But this race excelled at forming groups. And well, Sarcosuchus, on the other hand, was not good at dealing with multiple enemies. With these thoughts in mind, the Sarcosuchus stretched his muscles, preparing to move its short and stout legs once again. But before leaving, I should take care of these pesky flies in the sky. Thinking this, the Sarcosuchus' chest suddenly swelled. At the same time, visible strands of spiritual energy rushed into his mouth. From a distance, it appeared as if the colossal creature was swallowing vast amounts of spiritual energy in the shape of a funnel. Damn it, the spiritual energy is rapidly rising, already reaching 60,000. An agitated voice came through the earphones, but it was already too late to react. All these pilots and even the nearby mutant beasts only a resounding prehistoric roar, grrr. The surging sound waves left ripples one after another as they spread into the surroundings. Crack, crack. One after another, fissures started to appear on the surface of the fighter jets. However, that was not the biggest tragedy. The real tragedy was that the pilots were already bleeding from their eyes, ears, nose, and mouth. One pilot even died from the shock waves. Sonic boom. Sarcosuchus possesses a wide vocal range. While it can use different vocalizations to declare its territory and attract mates, it can also use these vocalizations to vibrate the air, generating tangible shockwaves akin to sonic attacks. It was just a petty trick before Sarcosuchus was in Tier 0. After becoming a transcendent, it evolved into Sarcosuchus' unique long-range indiscriminate attack. Casting a cold glance at the fighter jets staggering in the sky, the Sarcosuchus paid no further attention to them. They were no longer able to pursue him. Now all they can do is wait for death or retreat. With these thoughts in mind, Sarcosuchus once again stretched his short and stubby legs. Boom. Star. With a thunderous boom, his entire body had completely rushed out of the tornado. However, at this moment, Sarcosuchus did not realize that a clear picture of him had also been captured by the camera on the fighter jets. A body that extended to 40 to 50 meters in length with a fearsome jaw measuring 4 to 5 meters in length. A body covered in hard, earth-yellow scales. A Sarcosuchus. A slight gasp escaped as the entire Spiritual Energy Monitoring Bureau fell into an eerie silence. Much to their shock and dismay, it was an atavism-type giant prehistoric crocodile. Just like the fearsome beast that had recently stirred up the beast tide. Both were atavism-type creatures. Symbolizing absolute brutality and top innate talent, you're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.